big news. Alec Baldwin shot and killed a woman on the set of the film Rust, and we've got a whole bunch of new details coming out, and we got a lot to talk about. It turns out, a couple new details, it was a live round, and apparently the crew had walked off set the day, I believe days prior, because the gun had misfired before. So here we go. I'm going to say it. Alec Baldwin is more than 100% responsible for this. We'll get into all of these details. I don't want to just rush into it, head first. We've also got some other really, I guess, more ridiculous news. Interestingly, Joe Biden came out with this PSA where he's speaking with a disabled man who is saying that thanks to Build Back Better, he's able to have his live-in assistance helping him live the life he does. And the man's name is Brandon. And so a lot of people think, this is an out-of-place PSA. This is the Biden administration's attempt to reclaim the name Brandon. And I'm willing to predict that the media is going to say anybody who says, let's go Brandon, is clearly mocking a disabled man. Okay, this should be funny. We got a lot to talk about. We got some awesome friends who have joined us. We got Viva and Barnes.
I was telling you earlier, this is a surreal experience. I've met Robert for the first time tonight, you, Tim, for the first time, and the team for the first time tonight. So 2 years we've known each other, and now we finally get to meet in the flesh.
You've been basically locked up in the gulags of Canada for your entire life, I believe, right?
I didn't realize I was locked up until the last 2 years, and then I realized we were locked up when I was asked for, documentation to travel from Quebec to New Brunswick. But getting here was a journey. I had to get, proof from you guys that I was coming down for legit non-vacation reasons.
Yeah.
Wow.
Negative rapid test. I brought papers just in case they asked. And I got through the customs, and it was a good feeling.
Let's get in depth on that later on. We'll jump into that. We got Robert Barnes.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah. What's your story? I mean, you guys should introduce yourselves, I guess.
Oh, yeah. So Robert Barnes, Barnes Law. This is Viva Frei. So the vivabarneslaw.locals.com. It's great to be here. It's great. It's finally good to meet up. I mean, basically, it was 2.5 years ago. Viva covered Alex Jones's deposition, and I was Alex Jones's lawyer at the time. And then all of a sudden, the pandemic happened, and the world went crazy.
Well, there you
It
go.
was the coolest thing. I was so naive at the time. In the background, I heard, "I like your work, Mr. Barnes." There was the other lawyer who said it after the deposition, and I only put it together after the first time we spoke. But Barnes was the lawyer in the background of that Alex Jones deposition. Who was the deposing lawyer?
Complete nut job. I mean, complete lunatic. I can say that now because I'm not part of the case. Just a complete, just a whack job all the way. Mark Bankston, just sort of lefty hardcore, had a fake anonymous Twitter account where he was saying all the things he was accusing other people of doing. Just insanity.
So you guys are lawyers. You comment on cultural issues in law. And it's really fascinating how people, I know I love watching your videos because I'm like, I need to understand this. Someone who's actually a lawyer. But you're Canadian, so it doesn't count.
Well,
right?
and no, I'm Canadian, and I was looking into the U.S. stuff to try to make sense of it for myself, and then that's how I fell into the niche. It's just trying to understand Jussie Smollett's deferred prosecution agreement.
Right.
That I realized other people don't know what it means, and so I'm a lawyer, not a U.S. lawyer. I can make sense of these terms and then explain it to people who don't understand it.
We got to. This will be helpful when we talk about this Alec Baldwin stuff. So we're definitely getting into it. I definitely want to approach that from a gun connoisseur perspective, but I think you guys will have a legal perspective, which would be interesting. And you, as a Canadian, probably have a lot of questions, in fact, about how.
I'm going to be the know nothing when it comes to guns because I know nothing when it comes to guns.
But knowing law should be interesting because you can ask those questions. Absolutely. So we'll get into all that stuff. We got Luke.
You're Canadian. You get a pass. Today, I'm wearing one of the most classiest shirts from my collection.
Indeed.
And it states, "Tax this
D.
Danny.
Richard.
Tax this Danny." And I have my family-friendly tape here. So if you really want to know what it says, you can find out by going to thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, man, me too. Ian Crossland, of course, here. What's up, dudes? I'm glad you guys are here in the flesh. This is great for the first time, and I don't want to waste any more time. Let's go.
I am so excited to be the one facilitating these two guys meeting. It was like an act of God to get all of this lined up in time, just like our event tomorrow. So I'm stoked to have you guys here. We'll have a great conversation.
And don't forget to go to timcast.com, become a member, sign up, help support our journalists, help us make more content. We've already got the Cast Castle vlog, Tales from the Inverted World. The crew has been working on this new pop culture show we're going to be producing. So we want our values, freedom, personal responsibility. We want these things to come out in the content we produce. So we're doing more. And that's thanks to your membership, again, at timcast.com. And we're also doing an event tomorrow night in the Harpers Ferry area. And there's going to be It's not just going to be the Timcast IRL crew. We got Ryan Long and Danny Polishchuk who are going to be doing comedy. You know Ryan and Danny from the videos he puts out that are amazing. And then there's probably going to be a bunch of other people showing up who happen to be in the area for some reason. They might be here for some reason, and they might end up at the event as well.
Yes.
And a couple people who live in DC. So I think a lot of people are going to be really pleasantly surprised to see that we somehow managed to pull together a large group of people for this, what was kind of just a random event. But as a member, those who are at the $25 level or more, the tickets were free. They're sold out now. We are currently doing an auction for another set of tickets. And then because I guess we're out of time, we're going to do one more auction for a very limited amount of time for 4 tickets. So that should be up at some point, maybe now, actually. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, so we're auctioning those off. And then if you are a member at the $25 level, we're actually going to seek out bigger venues because our intention was never to gate it so that $10 members couldn't get it. It was that we wanted to create something that was like, okay, if you're, a dedicated fan and you really want to support us, then we'll give advance notice of our events. Considering we sold out faster than I realized we would, I guess I underestimated, how much people really wanted to come to events like this. We're going to do a much bigger venue the next time around, and then we'll be able to, and the tickets are free. We're going to do, to the best of our abilities, we're trying to do free events for our members. So that's another thing you'll get. The challenge, I suppose, is if the venues don't allow us to do that this time around, we're covering all the costs. Pretty expensive, but I think it's totally worth it because real world events are where people form those bonds, make those connections, meet friends, get married even, maybe, who knows? So that's why we're doing it. So definitely thanks for being a member. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, all that stuff. Let's just get into it. Let's talk about some news. We got some new information on the Alec Baldwin shooting from the LA Times. Rust crew describes on-set gun safety issues and misfires days before fatal shooting. In fact, they say hours before the actor Alec Baldwin fatally shot a cinematographer on the New Mexico set of Rust with a prop gun, a half dozen camera crew workers walked off the set to protest working conditions. The camera operators and their assistants were frustrated by the conditions surrounding the low-budget film, including complaints about long hours, long commutes, and collecting their paychecks, according to 3 people familiar with the matter who were not authorized to comment. We're also learning, I believe we have this story, it's from People. The gun Alec Baldwin fired on Rust set contained a live round, Prop Masters Union says. Now, this is, normally I don't care too much about the pop culture stuff. It's not policy. But this is Alec Baldwin, an overtly political actor, a violent and angry individual online who has been a very prominent activist, whether you like it or not, or you think it's silly, he has been. He is, look, many of these people, I don't want to say him directly, but I'd assume him, along with many others, are anti-gun. And this is how it manifests. They want to play with weapons on set, and they don't want to take responsibility for it. So this is a gun issue. It's a political issue. And now I'm seeing all of these people tweet at me, it's not Alec Baldwin's fault. No. I said it's more than 100% his fault because not only at the time, when I said that, if the gun is given to you, it is in your hand, you're responsible for what comes out of it, period. That doesn't mean he's a murderer. It just means he's responsible. It could be negligence, it could be manslaughter, or it could be accidental, but it's on him. The other issue is now that we're learning that the crew had been describing gun safety issues already, if he was not aware of that when he was handling a weapon, his fault.
Yeah. So here's my one question as an ignorant Canadian. I took a firearms safety course, but when I saw the term misfire, I just asked the question, is it not firing when it's supposed to, or is it firing by accident?
I looked this up. A misfire means that it doesn't fire at all. Then there's a thing called a hang fire where it doesn't fire for about 30 seconds and then it fires.
Okay, that's interesting.
I don't know about if it just goes off without even touching it, if that's also considered a misfire. I couldn't figure that out.
Well, another thing we have to add to this discussion is that if someone knows gun safety, if someone knows how to use guns, if someone is properly trained on how to use guns, they could prevent a lot of these incidences from happening because hey, I got a real gun, I got real bullets, and you know the difference between fake bullets, dummy bullets, fake guns, prop guns, and real guns. So this is a huge tragedy. We're hearing other reports that Alex said, "Why was I given a live gun after this incident?" So again, I have to kind of say
I think he
here,
said hot. Didn't he say hot?
Yeah, I believe something along those lines. The reports are still coming in. The police say that they're still investigating all of this, but it is very prominent that a lot of the people who are the most anti-gun don't know anything about guns.
Well,
and that's something that should be stopped immediately. And people should take some time and learn about them because, these incidences could be prevented with just information and knowledge. But sadly, a lot of the times we can't even talk about these issues.
So I tweeted that this is Alec Baldwin's fault. I didn't say he should go to prison. I didn't say, in one tweet, I have expressed that, he should be charged to a certain degree. There should be an investigation, I'll put it that way. But I get all of these lefties, these because they love Alec Baldwin, because he is in their tribe, they're like, it's the prop master's fault. And I'm like, prop master wasn't holding a gun. It's crazy to me. People then said, so Tim actually believes in more gun control now? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it is the two-way advocates who are the ones demanding responsibility for gun owners, not the government imposing restrictions on the people. So
Well, we'll just contrast it to the Kyle Rittenhouse case. I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse actually knew how to use a gun, only used it in self-defense purposes, and they were eager for him to be prosecuted with every imaginable crime, even crimes that didn't apply to him under the constitutional circumstances. And yet here you have a celebrity, a high-profile personality, overtly political over the last decade, who chose to be very anti-gun, who killed somebody because he didn't have basic training. Yep. And that's it.
That's right.
I don't even understand how they have a live gun on a set. I appreciate it's a prop, and that to me means
It's a real gun.
there should never be anything near bullets in it. So is it shooting a shell of the blank? Or
Bullets are banned from these kinds of movies. So how did this happen? I mean, there's a lot of accusations about how the workers were treated here. There's a lot of accusations about scabs.
Getting crazy.
There's a lot of implications with people just being brought in out of nowhere. So
Yep.
I mean, this happened before. It's not like this never happened before. This happened to Brandon Lee. Bruce Lee's son was shot and killed because of another accident where someone had a live bullet on the production facility. So they made sure to ban all live bullets from production facilities, and this happened again.
I don't think it's an accident. I'm not saying it was an intentional murder or anything like that. But, when I'm thinking about this story, I got my biases, all right? And I'll tell you one of them. We've got some replica guns here. We've got airsoft. We have actual mock replicas for like basic training purposes. It's like a piece of metal that just slides back, doesn't really do much. And I was just explaining to the Viva and Barnes before we started the show, like I'll ask someone like, hey, the gun safety rules, right? Never point at anybody, finger off the trigger, the gun is always loaded. And I'll hand them the weapon, and the first thing they always do is just like, oh wow, and I'm like, your finger's on the trigger and you're pointing it at people. You see, you failed the test when you do that. So they say, oh, but Alec Baldwin's got training and he's safe. My assumption is that he was goofing around. He did not respect that weapon. He clearly did not check it. If they're saying it was a live bullet, that means he didn't open it up and say, you got to be handed okay, if you're getting a revolver, the revolver should be open, pointed down, handed to you by the armorer of the set, the prop master who says, this is a Colt 45 loaded with 45 long Colt revolver. We are closing the revolver now. When you pull the trigger, it will fire a live round. He's handed a gun he doesn't look at. He doesn't open, he doesn't check. And then it misfires, whatever that means.
I'll play devil's advocate because I really don't like Alec Baldwin. But setting aside the politics, his overt, hateful rhetoric, irrelevant for the time being. If I'm Alec Baldwin and I'm a Hollywood actor and someone says, this is a prop for a scene, here you go, take it. Look, I don't even know how I'm supposed to know that it's a real.
It's
real
easy
life.
with a little bit of training.
Hold on. Let's make a legal argument out of it. I hand Ian a loaded gun. And I say, don't worry, Ian, it's not loaded. You can shoot Viva. And then he does. Will Ian get in trouble?
At that point, a loaded gun, a real gun, I would say yes.
But
Rob, you'll back me. But if you say it's a prop, I don't even have a reason to know that it's a real gun. I would say you're the one who's going to be guilty of setting up something cataclysmic. Because if I have no reason to believe it's a real gun.
Do you think a court would tell, like if I say this is a prop gun, don't worry, go ahead and point it at him and pull the trigger. The court's going to be like, no, it's not Ian's fault. He was just pointing a gun and pulling the trigger.
The problem is
someone gave him bad info.
If Alec Baldwin was a 20-year-old actor who'd never done anything before, that might work. But the problem is he's been around for too long. So he does know exactly what a prop gun is. I mean, if I was looking at prosecuting him, I would be looking at that experience, and that would be the problem.
It's not just prop guns.
Sorry. There was a comment from someone. I think one of the someone who's worked with Baldwin who said they worked with him before. They knew he was well trained and very safe. That's actually a really good point. You could argue there's no way he wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
There's also a difference between blanks and real bullets. You could tell the difference just by looking at them. Blanks obviously don't have that top part and that projectile that goes in.
The bullet?
The bullet. So obviously the two are very different. And if someone, just checked, someone just looked at it, and especially if he's just picking up a firearm, I wish he would have checked.
But here's the other thing. My understanding is they never actually point the guns at people anyway.
That's the other bottom line. It's like even with my kid, we tell him not to point the Nerf dart gun at people because you just don't do it out of habit. I'm only giving him the benefit of the doubt that if he has no reason to believe it's a real gun holding live rounds, and I don't even know why that would be on a set, how it gets there in the first place, and you may have cumulative responsibility here, one aspect of negligence coupled with another. How did it get there?
Everybody can get sued from a civil perspective.
I'm kind of wondering about a criminal element here.
Sabotage is an interesting, creative thought.
Because I didn't even think about that. You've got a crew that's walking off protesting, saying the conditions are bad. You've also probably got low budget people who aren't being, properly vetted. Someone put a live bullet in that gun.
Yeah, I mean,
why?
Workers were sending out messages on social media saying things like, quote, "I am literally on the show in New Mexico with him, and the producers on that movie are treating the local crew like effing dog crap." I'm not going to family-friendly show, so I can't say that. But that's exactly what one of the workers, a part of this crew, said, and he goes on and he details a lot of bad conditions.
I'm doing a little bit of speculation here too, but we were asking. Everybody's been asking like, what kind of gun was it? What kind of round was it? Here's my best guess, because we don't have all the full details. We got this from IMDb. A 13-year-old boy left to fend for himself and his younger brother following the death of their parents in 1880s Kansas. All right. Well, what kind of gun would they be using in a movie about the 1880s? I'd imagine it's going to be a revolver. I'm not an expert on this stuff, but I'd imagine that he was armed with a .45 long Colt. And so I guess what happened was the single bullet hit the woman, and then it went through her and then hit the director as well. And he didn't have life-threatening injuries. He went to the hospital. Some people were speculating that it was a blank and it shattered the camera, sending shrapnel into her or something like that. But now we have the article from the People. Apparently, Union was saying it was a live round.
And a live round that went through one person and then hit a second person that went to the hospital.
And so Luke mentioned this. Luke was like, it must have been a .45, and I was like, a .45?
It went through one person.
I know.
So I mean, there needs to be a lot of power.
And I'm asking myself, why would the gun be pointed at the cinematographer in any case? Right. When I first heard the story, I thought maybe it was the stunt person involved, but why would the gun have been pointed at a cinematographer?
I'm thinking he was shooting towards camera. She was right on the camera, and he was shooting like right past it, and the director was behind her on the monitor watching. So they were both there in the line, and he was just like, you don't even pay attention to the crew when you're acting. It's like they're not there pretty much, and so that was probably going through his mind.
I think that's a good possibility. Ian's point. Often when people are learning how to shoot, when they grip the gun incorrectly, they could squeeze their hand, causing the handgun to move in other directions. So what I've been told when I've gone to these classes is that people will typically pull down. When they pull the trigger, their hand makes the barrel point down.
Yeah.
But some people will pull left. So if Alec Baldwin has the gun and he squeezes his hand, not knowing how to use the weapon, and it causes the barrel to shift to the left and she's to his left, he hits her.
One thing that's concerning is they call it a misfire. A misfire, by definition, means that it never went off. So it wasn't a misfire. It was maybe a hanging fire, or maybe it just got fired accidentally, which I don't think is considered a misfire.
I still have great difficulty understanding why there's a live bullet in a gun on set of a movie.
That's why it sounds criminal.
There's an interesting aspect given the tweets set on, the ambiance on the set, the environment on the set. It sounds like there might have been something else, like potential sabotage.
Wow.
But I would, before blaming Alec Baldwin, in as much as I loathe him as a politician, political character, I would say there should never be bullets on a set, and it'll be everybody.
That rule already exists.
Yeah. So I don't know, man.
If it wasn't followed, then there's going to be some production companies
It's why didn't he know? I mean, that's the problem. If he's done this a lot, how did he not know there was something wrong?
So do you think criminal?
I mean, he should be under criminal investigation without doubt.
People are saying manslaughter.
Civil easily against everybody involved.
Against everybody, yeah. But criminally, you'd have to investigate. And you'd want to investigate everything connected to her, whether there could be a backstory here beyond the Union backstory.
I mean, look, I don't want to jump the shark on our speculation, but having an affair...
You would definitely look at that.
Right,
and you'd have to look at that.
Right.
There's a very interesting video of a crew with Will Smith looking at replica and fake alleged firearms. And you see one of the crew members pick it up and point it directly at Will Smith. Will Smith smacks it out of his hands, grabs it out, takes out the magazine. I saw this going around on Instagram. Takes out the firearm, puts it in the safe direction, takes out the magazine, and of course checks it to make sure that there's nothing in there, and then hands it back to the crew member, being like, these people aren't following basic gun safety rules here.
Yeah,
but he was taking it seriously on a movie set, because a lot of these prop guns are usually just real guns with blank bullets.
Check it out, we got it. This is this was Bad Boys, and so Yeah, so you can see it.
That right is going to happen now. That guy points it right
Look
in
at
his
that.
face.
Boom.
Smacks it down, grabs it out. Checks the clip.
Well,
in the
this
magazine.
this might
And then
look
he
like
does it right. Thank you, Will.
and then he goes like the ends. Yeah,
that looks like it might have been a setup promo for the
Right.
movie. That's that's
Could have been.
good.
That's great,
But
though.
what was the other thing I was going to say? I forgot now. It'll come back in a
But
second.
I mean, he's done it too long not to have known something was wrong, so he had to be out of it.
Oh, this is
Yep.
what I was going to say. That it's for everybody out there. They should know also that having blanks in there doesn't necessarily make it 100% safe either. From the Brandon Lee story,
No, that's I think Hexam.
which is the one that had the leftover
Yeah, it was-
shell from the blank.
No. The blank. So blanks kill you. A blank will kill you. People. So I've got a revolver. I've got the governor, Smith & Wesson governor, and I went to a range. I brought some weapons. Asked the guys like, give me the lowdown. Tell me what for. And one of the things I said is, don't hold the revolver with your hands where the cylinder is, because the gases in the explosion come out sideways. So you'll hurt yourself. That's just the concussive force of the round. A blank itself has enough power to kill you at close range. So that story, I guess, is like a 1984 guy on the set of a TV show had a gun with a blank in it, and he just took himself out.
The Brandon Lee thing, they had dummy rounds, which are improvised from live cartridges. They have the powder removed, but in his case, they didn't remove the powder.
Okay.
All right. We're going to do a hard segue off this topic because someone just, because I want to, but
Yes.
someone also chatted, Biden is a blank. Okay, good enough for me. Biden being blank. So I saw this tweet, and a lot of other people were commenting something similar. This is President Biden tweeting, "I'm fighting every day to pass my Build Back Better agenda for folks like Brandon. His story is like so many I've heard across the country. Folks are just looking for a fighting chance and to be treated with the dignity they deserve, and that's what my agenda is all about." I saw this video, and my first reaction was they're trying to hijack Let's Go Brandon, and there's a disabled man named Brandon saying, "Thank you, Joe Biden, for Build Back Better. It's because of this plan I can keep, my live-in assistance." And I'm like, that's just wrong. This poor guy. First of all, he didn't pass Build Back Better. It's not going to happen. Manchin and Sinema are saying no. And it really feels like this was a PR campaign because Let's Go Brandon, for those that don't know, means F Joe Biden. And it's viral. It's viral.
Yeah.
Sports games, colleges. Apparently, I was reading like people at a gun range were all yelling it.
Yeah.
That one's obvious.
So viral, it's generating apparently fake news stories out of Canada, which was some government agency out of Canada saying in a formal memo that you're not allowed saying "Let's Go Brandon" or any variation thereof.
Yeah.
Apparently, it turned out to be fake,
Yeah.
but
it's my number one T-shirt seller. My Let's Go
okay.
Brandon shirt. It's the number one that people are buying more than anyone else. So this has caught on like wildfire.
Now it means this nice little disabled guy.
Right. GOP congressman ends floor speech with "Let's Go Brandon." Florida Rep Bill Posey signed off with a fist pump.
Spicy.
Yeah,
There's
it's
songs at the top of the charts talking about it. I mean, this has caught on, and there's something to say
Brilliant.
about this. Yeah.
Brilliant.
But what's actually terrible is you're not allowed saying it in certain places, or it's become taboo.
Where?
In
Canada, maybe?
No, just on social media. You don't say it because it's a political statement now. They still can't say it for this guy. His name may very well be Brandon, and now nobody can cheer him on.
Right.
You say hijacking, and it might just be co-opting, or they might want to flip it around where now whenever they say "Let's Go Brandon," it's going to have a positive tone that Biden's going to be able to say, "Look,
Yep.
they're cheering
People-
on my campaign." Yeah, I was
Could
thinking-
you imagine if Biden ends up doing a video where or like Jen Psaki, they'll play a clip of people going, "Let's go, Brandon," and then she's going to be like, people are really picking up our campaign. They're really excited.
Well, it's memes come to life because there's all the memes of Biden talking to Obama, saying they're cheering his name, they're doing all these things, they want to have sex with him. That's what it all means, and now it's going to be for real life. Though Trump would have never made this mistake, just because the association is Biden with disability in such a way that I don't know if I would associate myself in that way.
I feel bad for the guy, man.
Yeah, he's just being completely
He's just
manipulated.
He's being used. He's being used. He's being exploited for an aspect of identity politics. It's just cheap politics. Just bring up people to garner sympathy, but also it's going to reflect poorly on Biden. That's for sure.
It remind everybody of it. I mean, why don't remind somebody of something that's a weakness?
Right.
Yeah, that's what Trump was really good at.
Completely. Don't talk about rope in a house with his been a hanging.
Yeah. And that's why he would label people with names.
Yes.
Sleepy Joe.
Yeah.
Crooked Hillary.
Crooked Hillary.
What was the other
go
one there
Brandon.
for Bush? Bush was
Low energy.
Low energy.
Low energy.
Yes. low
And then he
energy.
got Cruz was
Lion
Ted.
Lion Ted.
And then my favorite was when the Trump supporters turned lion, like lying, into lion, like roar.
yeah.
They were like, he's Lion Ted, but it's the good one now.
Pretty clever.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got
Little Marco.
Lil
Marco.
Marco.
Marco. Yeah.
Man, Trump was good at it.
He was brilliant.
And that we all remember them without much help is
Yes.
amazing as to
Yes.
how the
But-
branding worked.
Yes.
So this is interesting, though. Trump was really good at memeing, like the naming people. Even now with Trump, kind of behind the scenes doing the Trump social stuff, people have just created another meme that's gone viral and everyone's laughing and loving it. And I think when you see we pulled up the Civics polling, Joe Biden's approval rating among independent voters is 26%.
He's just thinking like a rock.
Remarkably bad.
Terrible.
So
I mean,
when you see football games and they're chanting "Let's go Brandon," like these are regular people. These are not political individuals.
Well, the last time we saw this kind of similar culture jamming was with Jeffrey Epstein, with the memes, with the messaging, everyone screaming. Jeffrey Epstein did not, kill himself,
naturally,
do something
yes.
to himself, and obviously, but that caught on everywhere on national television. People interrupted broadcasts. People were bringing it up in just the most weirdest random points, and that caught on because there was a major disassociation from the mainstream, from the narrative, from, of course, everything the establishment wanted you to know and think about, and then people saying, hey, we're actually paying attention here, you're full of crap, we're going to let you know about it by putting this into the culture. So this is another example of this on another level, which is pretty awesome and interesting to see.
For the one viewer out there who might not know the whole story, it's Brandon Brown from NASCAR wins the NASCAR, and everyone in the background chanting F Joe Biden, and the reporter says, hey, you hear them saying, let's go Brandon.
Wow.
It's The
Yeah.
Simpsons again
I
predicting
know.
the future. The Simpsons have done it time and time again. Here it's Boo Earns. Boo
Right,
Earns.
right, Boo
I mean,
Earns.
it would be a joke if it weren't so darn funny, actually.
I gotta
it's a
tell
good
you,
joke.
man. I keep seeing posts where it's like we live in a simulation because it's just become so. Life is a parody of itself at this point. How stupid everything's become.
They call it a simulacrum, where there's
Sim-
it's like a false
It's a
essence of
crappy
a
one.
simulation where they're
Crappy.
showing
Yeah.
you, they're like actively trying to show you a fake reality.
Let's go, Brandon.
Man, and are they?
It was so obvious that they were trying to be like, uh-oh, what do we do? When I was on Newsmax, Sean Spicer's show, and they were like, they played the clip, and you hear beep Joe Biden, beep Joe Biden. I'm laughing because I'm like the beeps
censored it.
because like we know what they're saying. I'm just imagining now like, I'm sorry, this campaign they're doing with this disabled guy, it seems so obvious.
It's cheap and exploitive.
But I will say, I would not be surprised if Biden comes out and tries claiming the "Let's Go Brandon" chants are for him now.
yeah.
Because look, the people who support the Democrats are not going to back away from that, and they'll be like, "See," and you'll be like, "Guys, it's not true." Every time a story comes out about Trump and it's proven to be false, or Fauci lies to Congress, and then you get all these Democrats on Reddit and Twitter being like, "Aha, Fauci's so smart," and you prove it's wrong. They don't accept reality. They just point to you and say you're a QAnon conspiracy theorist. And I'm like, bro, I don't know anything about those guys. But I'll tell you this. They're not the ones in CNN. They're not the ones in the White House or Congress. Maybe like one or two people if you want to be very critical. But y'all, like all of you, except for like a very small faction, are totally in on this insanity, this fake news.
Well, it's just redefining language. I mean, it's to the point where fully vaccinated is now not going to mean fully vaccinated
Right.
within a couple of weeks.
Well, hold on. What does fully vaccinated even really mean?
The
I mean, how
CDC
many-
definition or the real life definition that other countries are using? Because there's a difference.
Well, so now University of Denver is going to mandate the flu vaccine.
Yep.
So if they're like, are you fully vaccinated? It's like, well, look, me personally, I've got a bunch of vaccines.
So many.
So I don't know what full counts to you, but, you know.
Though, to drop a little Quebec politics, François Legault, the premier of Quebec, when he tweeted it out, he didn't use fully vaccinated. He used, it was in French, adéquatement vacciné, adequately vaccinated.
Nice.
which I astutely pointed out.
I
That's
like
great.
that.
That's nice fluff talk there, because that
Right.
means 2 doses is not going to be enough very soon.
Nope.
Yep.
There's no question. It's going to be a constantly evolving term, and it's going to be absorbing other vaccines and other issues. Now the government knows it can mandate what it can put into your body, and it's going to expand into other issues as well. It's not
The
just
other
these-
day, Luke claimed that Bill Gates was funding a microchip that can make you fertile or
That
infertile.
could turn on and off fertility
Yeah.
through a
And
touch of a button.
And I told him
Remote
he was
control.
crazy
Yep.
until I Googled it, and it's true.
Alex Jones.
Yep.
Bill Gates funded implantable contraceptive.
Yep.
Contraceptive, right?
Yeah.
Well, microchip, but it's a contraceptive that you can control with an app. And so actually that innocently, sounds great, right? An individual who wants to, a woman or presumably a guy wants to go on birth control, they can just turn their phone on, and then when they want to have kids, they can turn it off. But, it just sounds so nefarious when you think about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Bill Gates and other people who believe in population control also having the ability to turn people's fertility on and off.
fine.
Nothing wrong with that. It's totally fine.
It's just you take the Chinese social credit model and you apply it much broader.
Yeah.
Because, what he did in India in terms of controlling people's biometric identification for purposes of financial access, for transportation, for travel, you just add vaccination. to
One
it.
child policy?
What you guys need to understand, what people need to understand is when you go on Twitter and you see the woke left, the establishment Democrats, that is the social credit system. They are currently living in it. And so that's why a lot of people won't speak out. There may be people watching right now who are like, I can't stand what's happening around me, but I'm not going to say anything. Congratulations, you live in the social credit system. The only thing you're missing is the app so they can read your score. But if you're going to abide by all of their rules and adhere to all of it, that's it.
Well, there already is a social credit score, but it's not like the people in China have to deal with. It's a corporate one here when many corporations have almost every aspect of your existence written down, recorded, and then they have a certain score that they allocate you on how many advertisements they could sell you, but also your political stances, what you believe in, where you should be ranked in the algorithm, how much you should be promoted, where you're going to land on the newsfeed, even if you're going to be shown on the newsfeed. So there's already a social credit score here in the United States with many multinational corporations that have implemented it with real life consequences because people speak wrong, think, and get punished for it already. Real life consequences.
Luke, I think I'm gonna have to ask you to be a little bit more sensitive to. We have a refugee from Canada here. Substantially worse.
I'm going back on Sunday.
He didn't say sorry
yet.
yet.
They let me back in.
Why are you coming back? Are you crazy?
I got my family in Canada.
Get 'em
for now.
out.
We'll
Go to Mexico.
We'll see what happens in the future. Canada's going off the rails now. If anybody hasn't
Yeah.
seen Trudeau's most
Going?
recent,
Has been.
No, it's getting even worse. Trudeau put out a tweet that says, when Health Canada approves the new vaccine, we're ready to go with it for kids 5 to 11.
Yeah.
So he's appealing to his own organization that's under federal control effectively to approve a vaccine that he's already purchased for the use that he intends on getting approval for, and tell me that's not a fact.
But can you travel domestically without a vaccine passport in
12
Canada?
years old, I think it's as of November.
Yeah.
12 years old and up, if you're not fully vaccinated, cannot take a plane or train.
Yeah.
So-
That's
so-
crazy.
So, is where you live known?
I'm in Montreal. Everybody knows that. I just ran for federal parliament.
Now, yeah. So that's
did
that's
win.
in Quebec.
Yeah, it's in Quebec.
So if you want to go to Toronto, for instance,
If you want to hop on a train, I don't know that it's in effect yet, but it's coming. If it's not already in effect, you'll have to show your vaccine passport to hop on a train.
what's
That's crazy.
it's province, right? What province is Toronto?
Quebec, Ontario. I'm in Quebec. Then there's Ontario. Then there's.
If you enter onto Ontario, there's a border. Do they check you?
Not anymore. They did over the summer, which I found enraging, politically, constitutionally enraging. Interprovincial travel, which is a constitutional right under our constitution, they asked for papers and they made us register. They made us go back to Quebec, go online, register to go to New Brunswick for a portion of our road trip.
That's insane. They brought up blockades, literally.
Yeah.
These orange little freaking
armed guards.
Yeah. No. They brought these what are they called? The orange things that they fill with water that stands
Bollards?
that what?
Bollards?
Cones.
No, not the cones.
Jersey barriers?
Yes, they brought in a whole bunch of water jersey barriers in Australia, banning people from even crossing the street because there was an imaginary line between two different states. Wow. So
It's hysteria.
It's
insane. You managed to escape. I imagine you must have crawled through a tunnel somewhere along the U.S.-Canada border.
Actually, it was the U.S. border. They were very nice. There were three guys. I mean, the whole team was very nice. And they looked sympathetic and understanding to the purpose of my travels. But yeah, I had to show everything to get across for non-essential work. As of November 8th, borders are going to be open, the land border, for non-essential. But that means you're going to have to show proof of vaccination. I think it's 12 or 13 and up, which basically means, if you're not vaccinated, you're not traveling.
When you said that it violates
So you
your
can't leave.
constitution, you put it in quotes.
I'm not trying to besmirch the Canadian Constitution, but now I've come to grips with the fact that it seems now more like a recommendation for the government than a compulsion.
I wonder about the
Similarly here in
Queen,
a lot of ways.
the Queen's role in that. Like, is it a recommendation? Everything, it's like you can.
They were rights guaranteed by the Charter. It's Section 1. These are the rights guaranteed by the Charter. They can only be infringed in as much as is justifiable in a free and democratic society. And now it seems that in a free and democratic society, they can lock you up in a government quarantine hotel for 3 days and make you pay $2,000 for it if you want to leave the country.
Where there have been allegations of security guards doing unspeakable things
Yeah.
to women, and there's many ongoing criminal prosecutions right now of those guards who are at these hotels, literally opening up the door when
the
women
doors
are by themselves.
Can't have locks. The doors can't have locks.
Yeah, the doors
Whoa.
can't have locks, and security guards have assaulted many women in many of these situations.
There's been a few incidents, but the quarantine hotels are no longer in force now. For now, but it's nuts. The rights that we thought we had guaranteed under the Constitution have all been systematically violated. And now the ultimate irony is that in Quebec, English Quebecers are complaining that their linguistic rights are being violated by François Legault. And I said, like, you guys just let him lock you in your house after 8 o'clock for 5 months. You think he cares about your language rights?
Do you remember Spaghetti Gate?
Which one is that?
That was when in Montreal there was an Italian restaurant that was serving spaghetti, and it just said spaghetti. And the language police came and said, "Why isn't it in French?" And they were like, "Because it's spaghetti." And then
just as an illustration, I don't know about that case, but I had clients who had canned goods coming in from outside of Quebec that had the ounce abbreviation in English. They had to put on a sticker that had the ounce abbreviation in French.
that's the language police.
They call them language police. It's Office de la langue française, and they're enforcers.
the enforcers of the French language.
It's a unique province.
So this is funny because you brought up that people are angry. Their linguistic rights are being infringed. Is what's the guy's name? François
Legault is the premier of Quebec.
Legault?
Legault. Legault.
Legault.
Legault.
I can't speak French, so. But so what is he doing? He's trying to he's trying to keep French as like their language.
He's trying to revamp an old law from 1977 called Bill 101, which created certain linguistic protections for the French language, which meant French had to be nettement prédominant on public signage, clearly predominant, and it applied to businesses of 50.
So he's far right, ultranationalist.
It's an ironic thing. I don't know how these measurements work anymore, but
Right.
bottom line, this Bill 96 now, it's going to enhance language laws. It's going to cap the amount of French Canadians, French Quebecers that can study English in post-secondary education. So this is how you protect the language, is by crippling your own population.
Yeah.
But if the Anglos complaining about it now, I say you reap what you sow, and you should have been out there on the street doing Viva on the streets, complaining about the curfew for 5 months, but you weren't because you thought it made you feel safe.
And now what's the justification? What the government doesn't have a right to do this.
Well, and he's invoking the notwithstanding clause of the Constitution, which says you have rights and freedoms that are guaranteed by the Charter, except we get to violate them if we specifically say in the law that we are violating those rights. And if you don't like it,
That's
What?
nuts.
look it up. It's called the notwithstanding clause, clause dérogatoire in French. And it basically says if the government specifically says they're violating your specific rights, certain rights are not able to be violated, they can invoke this clause. The law can last no longer than 5 years or a shorter specified time. The idea being, if you don't like a totalitarian government, you'll vote them out next election. But
This is ridiculous. It basically CBC says it's the notwithstanding clause. Section 33 gives provincial legislature of parliament the ability through the passage of law to override certain portions of the charter for a 5-year term.
it's crazy.
So imagine if that was like in the U.S., they'd be like, we're passing a law that will violate your Second Amendment rights because the Constitution allows us to violate your rights.
Well, we kind of have over the last 2 years. I mean, we've suspended
Fair,
the Constitution pretty much everywhere. I mean, we've
Oh,
created
yeah.
a de facto emergency exception to the Constitution, which we've never had. It's what allowed the Nazis to rise to power in Germany.
Sure, but I think we got to be a little bit more fair than that. It was the famous quote from Patrick Henry when he said, "Give me liberty or give me death," unless there's a pandemic
Or a flu going around.
or a
exactly.
flu,
Yeah.
or a flu, or if we go to war in a foreign country. And Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson were like, "Oh, absolutely. I mean, we must get entangled in we must get stuck in foreign entanglements."
Environmental crisis.
Right. Well, I mean, this was our Constitution was formed when we had 7 smallpox epidemics during that time period.
Yeah.
I mean, so it wasn't like they were unfamiliar with the risk.
Yep.
They were intimately familiar with it and decided we should not forfeit liberty for that purpose.
That's actually a good point. When people are like, George Washington mandated vaccines, my response is like, for his conscripts,
Yeah,
like people
exactly.
who were forced to join the military, sure. And interestingly, they still guaranteed our rights in the Constitution, having dealt with a smallpox epidemic.
And didn't include that as an option going forward, which he could have. He could have included a military exception. He did not. So the founders knew exactly what they were doing, and we've just abandoned it over the last 2 years.
This has been my biggest learning curve in doing the live stream with Robert. The genius of the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights. I mean, it's fantastic, and it took foresight and it
So
took
jealous.
understanding. When people first started saying Canada has no freedom of speech, they started telling me this, back with Jordan Peterson and compelled speech. I was like, "No, you guys are wrong. We have freedom of speech here." Then Mike Ward got fined $43,000 for making fun of a handicapped kid, Jeremy Gabriel. Then I was like, you guys might be right. And now, now it's on steroids.
Yeah, it's crazy up there, man, and it's cold.
Yeah.
It's cool, but the cold is beautiful. It's a dry cold, as we say. It's not moist.
I'm surprised we don't have more
Humid.
radicalized Canadians because you have like harsh conditions and oppressive government. That's like a recipe for people to lose their minds.
Well, the People's Party, what, tripled the vote?
The People's Party tripled the vote. Nearly 1 million Canadians who voted. Of the 16 million who voted, is 800 and some odd thousand voted for the PPC. And then, Robert, you saw this. Like after the election, people were asking, why would Justin Trudeau call an election during a pandemic? It's a health crisis. How could you call an election? They went after and are still going after the PPC for a post-election party that they had, where they got the Saskatchewan police to like the FBI's most wanted list to post 11 pictures of people who attended an after party of the election night and asked for anonymous tips to identify the 11
To
individuals.
January 6th. What the heck?
Yeah, no, this is. I mean, it was
Insurrection in
Yeah.
Canada.
an insurrection après election party. They got the Saskatchewan police, Saskatoon, I think, to actually tweet it out. Help us identify these 11
Yep.
individuals.
You know what I find fascinating is that in France they riot for everything, but in Canada, not nearly as much. Like what? How does it happen? Because when you look at, here's the way I often explain it with England, right? The English, they come over, they colonize parts of the New World, and we inherit a lot from these original settlers, people who are willing to risk everything to come to a new world, risk death to build something with no guarantees, because they wanted freedom. They wanted, for a variety of reasons, religious freedom or otherwise. The French came over here as well, but Canada is very, very different from, like France revolts. The Yellow Jackets, when they tried raising petrol prices.
The Yellow Vests.
Yellow Vests.
They're going through 15 weeks of protest right now against the vax mandates.
So why doesn't Canada inherit a lot of that?
I don't know. And Robert and I have discussed it. Like even within Canada, you would think Quebec would be revolting against this more than perhaps the rest of Canada. Crickets. And it's I think, look, when you see people sitting outside on a park bench, double masked, reading a book, the media has had its impact now, and people believe they need these measures in order to feel safe and be safe. And they've passed that point of no return.
Well, Canadians always say sorry all the time, so I think that has a big thing to do with it.
But then we get Tom McDonald and some other good Canadians who don't say sorry.
Hey, Seth Rogen's Canadian, and he's a dick.
Do you think it has something to do with the Commonwealth and the Queen? Because Australia and Canada are getting rocked right now by this.
We're not at Australia levels. I just think it's like you get to a point where you feel that there's nothing you can do to step it back. So you either are convinced it's necessary, or you're just beaten into passiveness where there's nothing you can do anymore.
Like, can the Queen just say, "Hey, your Constitution's gone now. I control it again"?
Think so. The Queen, as far as I understand, has
only
symbolic.
That's what they say, but then
Canada.
she can also dispel. She can get rid of the prime minister if she wants.
I don't think so. But subject to error. Nobody likes being wrong on the internet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you don't
Ian,
know as a Canadian lawyer.
Ian, if you want the correct answer, just assert one of them to be true, and you'll get inundated.
I get
with people
different
correcting you.
information from different people about the Queen's authority in the Commonwealth.
My understanding is it's symbolic. It's purely symbolic, and her face on our money is also purely symbolic. It's not how it works, in my understanding. But I know people say that. But no, we have our parliamentary system. We make our laws, and I don't think the Queen has any.
Do they own a lot of real estate in Canada? Like in London, I was shocked at how much royal family
I don't
property
know,
they own it everywhere.
because Meghan couldn't come to. She didn't
that's
come to
right.
Canada,
Good
so
point.
I'm not
Right.
sure that they do.
Interesting. Did you guys see what's going on with Candace Owens?
Yeah.
Indy 100, Australians react to Candace Owens' call for U.S. to invade over COVID restrictions. And we also have this from Time. U.S. conservatives want to save Australia from COVID tyranny. Australians aren't interested. So the media is running this claim because Candace Owens made a joke where she was like, paraphrasing, she was like, look how bad it is in Australia. I mean, when are we deploying? Obviously, I say that in jest. But, you look at... And so they're like, oh, publish it. Candace Owens wants to invade Australia. This is what happens. When you have people who believe this, we're screwed, man.
Well, and the other thing about it is there's tons of complaints in Australia, but they know that if they say anything, there's some very prominent personalities, other people we've talked to who've made it clear they can't talk about Australia publicly, even when they're not physically there because of what might happen to their friends or their family back home.
like
That's
North
how bad
Korea,
it is.
huh?
It is at that level.
And I have friends and other people that I know in Australia, and I asked them the question, but I don't trust the answers because I do genuinely feel that they are afraid to even speak it on social media in DMs because they know it can be
Police show up
Look
at
at
people's
Colette.
homes for Facebook posts in Australia.
look at
I mean,
Colette.
freaking hell.
No, I'll shout out Avi Yamini, who is a Rebel News journalist in Australia, doing God's work is an understatement. It's over the top there. They show up to your house and they arrest you for organizing a protest.
Quillette, it was considered to be like the IDW publication when the intellectual dark web was all big and everything. And they are completely defensive of, they are pro-mandate, pro-lockdown, pro-camp. And then it was Mike Cernovich. He tweeted out one of these stories, like a video of a guy being indefinitely quarantined. And he was like, where's Quillette? You'd think a freedom, publication would have a lot to write about. And then someone said something. My response was, Avi Yemeni is, on the ground. He's covering these stories. So there you go.
Let's call a spade here. What's happening in Australia is tyranny. It's over the top. It's draconian. It's government literally forcing its will in the most nastiest, disgusting ways on the people when the people don't want it. There have been major protests. There have been major crackdown against protests. And I think one of the reasons why politicians in the United States and journalists in the United States aren't really talking about it is because they really want to implement some of the same policies here in the United States. And you could see that. They call for the same things, the same mandates, the same restrictions, the same lockdowns. And it's utterly insane. Now, Melbourne, just a few days ago, announced that they're getting rid of their lockdowns. They had 262 days of stay-at-home orders, of people being locked down, not being able to go outside. People were screaming outside of their balconies just a few hours ago because they lifted some of these restrictions and they allowed people to go out at night. So again, what's happening in Australia is just beyond draconian, beyond 1984. China's literally blushing at what Australia is willing to do against their own people. And for that other article to say the Australian people don't want this, how do you know? Are you talking to all the Australian people? Because there sure as hell has been a lot of protests, a lot of people standing up, a lot of people speaking out, even though they face the full might of a technocratic police state that shows up at their door because they spread wrong think on the internet.
Luke, the Australians don't want this. They don't want liberation. And I know because Time magazine says Australian lawmakers took to Twitter to school American critics of the country's COVID-19 public health measures. That proves it.
Yes.
Because these lawmakers were elected by the people. That means they're the will of the people, and the Australian people are very happy that all this is happening.
What's extraordinary in the United States and in most of the Western world is how often they have not utilized the legislative process. How often this has circumvented the legislative process, circumvented the judicial process, who mostly sort of cowered rather than deal with it. You just had executive orders by unelected officials who just basically put us in a real live Milgram experiment. Let's see how much we can get away with. Let's see how much people will tolerate. And unfortunately, we found out a lot of people would tolerate much more than we would like.
So I tweeted out, there was a picture of the quarantine camps. I think it was in Melbourne. And someone said quarantine camp. I'd put asterisk concentration camp. And then it was some writer from Quillette or whatever. And then it was Claire Lehman herself. She was like, we are not building death camps, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I didn't say death camp. I did say concentration camp, trying to allude to what these things could be. But then she ends up writing in The Spectator that, popular American pundit Tim Pool says this, that, and otherwise. And I'm like, if you really want to call me out, man, please do so, because I would love to point out how much of a coward Claire Lehman of Quillette is and how their publication are a bunch of cowards. And I will tell you this. I will say two things. If Google ever came to me and said, show us your vaccine documentation or we're deleting your channel, I'd be like, I do nothing.
Don't
delete it or else.
Don't give them any ideas, Tim. But the issue is this. It's I'm going to lose my thought again, Robert. It was
about
the
Claire Lehman.
No, I was going to say one more thing.
Go for it.
Because I said two things. The other thing is, if the United States was in the position that Australia was in with camps and permanent lockdown, I would be saying the exact same things I am now. I don't care what the risks are. They can come to my house and they can say you're going on indefinite quarantine, and I'm not going to shut up.
And you gave me time to think of what I was going to say.
There you go.
The media pretends not to understand a joke when they want to demonize the person who said it. It
Right.
was clearly a joke, and they pretend that it was a serious statement, and not to bring it back to the PPC. Maxime Bernier, the leader of the PPC, at one point put out a tweet that said Maoists have invaded our government and are trying to take over, making a joke about how it looks like we're imitating China, Mao's China in Canada. The Journal de Montréal, or La Presse, one of the media, ran with it as though he was seriously saying we're being infiltrated by communists. And the media, when it wants to lambaste someone, pretends that a joke is not a joke.
Well, no, hold on. I think they genuinely don't know what jokes are. I mean that literally. I'm not being sarcastic or facetious. I actually don't think they understand jokes.
Yeah, that's Mark Robert's argument. He argues that stated societies can't handle comedy.
So I tweet things that are often nonsensical, and they're all taken literally by the left. And I'm just like, so I have a friend who is, I don't know if, I'm assuming we're still friends, a very prominent Hollywood personality who messaged me saying, you need to understand that when you tweet these things, there are people who think they're real. And I was like, please, if that is true, and I think it might be, we are in serious trouble. Because like when I post something, I posted President Biden as Cornholio because he did the Cornholio thing. I said, who did this? It's so disrespectful to the president. You know, my favorite was when I said impeach the queen. So It was like, I don't remember exactly what happened, but something happened with Queen Elizabeth, and I said impeach Queen Elizabeth, and a website, NewsGuard Certified, ran it as fact.
Oh, yeah.
Personality Tim Pool calls for impeaching the queen, and then I became adamant that Wikipedia include the statement because it was a reliable source. It was fact-based.
But in fairness, someone who doesn't know you and doesn't know your political leanings or your position might think you're a very sensitive individual who found it to be
Impeach the
offensive.
queen.
No, not even who did this to Joe Biden. It's disrespectful. But things get taken literally on Twitter.
Twitter is awesome.
And then things, if you put in hashtag sarcasm, everyone's like, oh, you think your followers are so stupid they don't know you're joking?
Yeah.
So it's a lose-lose.
Have you seen Michael Malice's tweets today?
Not today.
His
About
are
Alec
great.
Baldwin.
Oh,
His are the best.
It can only be good.
I can't say some of his tweets,
No.
but I was laughing like crazy. Wow. I tweet a lot of just like silly stuff. I retweeted Shoe on Head. She said, I effing hate liberals. I don't have any other politics. And that was just fantastic. And she did it because this like liberal guy was insulting her because she was making fun of Alec Baldwin or something. I don't know, whatever. Twitter is fun.
Now I got to go see. I'm glad I put my phone on the floor so I don't
Get distracted.
go see Michael Malice's tweets. But that's next on my list.
Oh,
wonder
there's so many memes out there.
Did you see his
Spicy.
tweets?
Oh my gosh, so hot.
Let me see if I can pull something up. Michael, you
Rapscallion.
troll. Yeah, you rapscallion. I don't think I can.
No, don't read it.
Oh my God.
I see a
can't
meme.
read
I can't.
these.
I see a meme and I
They
can't.
said comedy
do
was
it.
tragedy plus time. I don't know
Yeah.
that there's
Who
been enough
needs
time yet for
time?
that. Oh my.
He's just been going off all day.
It's been great. I've been enjoying it.
I've got to be able to read at least one so you understand like what he's saying, but I don't know if I can. I'm trying to find one. All right.
Oh boy.
Okay. I am calling for a total and complete shutdown of Hollywood film production until our country's representatives can figure out what is going on.
Yes.
Hashtag Alec Baldwin. That's the one, but below it is, I'm just going to read it straight. He
What?
says, in the culture wars, it's currently a draw between Charlottesville and Alec Baldwin.
Oh, that's brutal.
Wow.
That was
Yeah.
brutal.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, back to the main point.
Anyway.
When you are a rigid ideologue, you don't understand jokes.
Right.
NPC is probably like the best
Yeah,
descriptor for a
it
lot
is.
of these people. So like I was saying, like I have a friend who's like, you know, people don't realize you're not being serious with these things. And I was like, isn't that really crazy? So then I started tweeting after she told me this. I started posting things on Twitter. After I'd say a joke, I'd say, the above tweet is not serious. I'm told I have to put this here because people aren't smart enough to understand. Unfortunately, that may be reality.
The other issue is like, at some point in time, you appreciate how historically general populations didn't know of the atrocities that were going on in their own countries because of the fact that the media was being censored and strictly limited by the government. And I can wholeheartedly believe that there are some Australians who don't even think it's that bad in Australia right now because they just don't know. And they don't even know what's going on in their own country because the media can't report on it freely.
Even though they have to walk around with QR codes in some places to get
in certain
permission
states,
to
in
get
certain
into, and now they're implementing one of the strictest vax passports than anywhere else in the world, where if you don't comply, you can't work in the public sector, in the private sector. You go into a business that you're not supposed to be in, or a business that's indoor, thousands of dollars of fines levied against you and the business for just existing as a human being. And again, what's happening there? There's police officers, when people are gathering for a protest, they just open fire with less lethal munitions
they
and rubber
shut-
bullets right away.
They shut
They
down
don't
the-
even ask any questions, arresting people for walking in nature by themselves because they weren't wearing a mask. I mean, it's just
we got to
criminal.
talk about President Cornholio.
Oh yeah, we do.
So I tweeted this. Whoever did this should be ashamed. How disrespectful to our president. So here's Joe Biden with Beavis's Head. And for those that aren't familiar with what Cornholio is, on Beavis and Butthead, one of the best shows ever, of course, by Mike Judge, Beavis, when he had too much caffeine, would pull his shirt over his head, hold his arms to his sides at a 90-degree angle with fists, and he would say he was the great Cornholio. Joe Biden did that.
He literally did it.
He literally did it. And I don't know why, but I will say this before we talk about just Joe Biden. Going off of what we're talking about with Twitter and the silliness, there's a reason why I tweeted, whoever did this should be ashamed how disrespectful to our president. It's because I wanted to share the image because it's hilarious, but I also wanted to make it so the media had a difficult time claiming I supported it. Because often what they'll do is, when I tweet something out, like with the Alec Baldwin thing, I said Alec Baldwin is responsible. They started saying Tim Pool wants him arrested and charged, and I'm like, I never said any of that stuff. I just said, ultimately, when it comes to guns, you're responsible. It's in your hand. So here, well, oh, no, I was criticizing this image of Joe Biden as Beavis. See? You see?
I just post the image. I don't give a damn.
Yeah, but so look, we've got the Zeppelin coming. The famous story you guys probably don't know. Everyone else knows. I'm sorry if you hear me tell the story, but for you guys, Wikipedia claimed because of some article I invented a Zeppelin that would fly around live streaming, and it was just like insane because I never did. I did work with drones, and so from that, I guess someone speculated something, wrote about a whiteboard idea we might have had. Wikipedia for years said I invented a Zeppelin. They finally removed it. They wouldn't remove it. They said I wasn't reliable, even though I said I never invented it. And so, Ian and I were talking. We're like, let's do it. So, Ian's been helping set this project up where we have the Zeppelin. It's coming. It's going to be here in like a week or two. And then we're going to retroactively make Wikipedia correct. So they'll have to redo it. So I look at how the media is fundamentally broken, how they shill for someone like Biden. And I understand how they do things, why they do things, and understanding how these people in the establishment don't understand jokes. You really can just manipulate their ability to do certain things. So in this instance, it's a tweet of me saying that you should be ashamed for disrupting the president.
I would say I think the country would be better off with a Beavis presidency than currently what we have right now with a Biden presidency. That would be my caption, but that's just me.
Ian, what do you think about President Beavis?
Well,
we would have toilet paper.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
I have a lot of thought. I feel like the reason I haven't been talking is because I feel like I'm going to be a wet blanket if I start talking right now. I feel like text is so dangerous and can be used as a weapon, speech as well. But in this instance, we still don't understand the power of text out of context, especially out of context. And text, satire, like you were saying earlier, be careful. Don't give them any ideas. Like if you make satire like, hey, the oligarchs are coming for me, then whoa, you're putting that out there, and they're going to be like, now's our chance. So that meme was actually pretty funny though.
Beavis is president.
Yeah.
What Newsweek said is the imaginary jetpack. So Newsweek wrote an article about the 5 strange moments you might have missed. The first thing I'll say is you might have missed it because nobody watched it. The ratings were apparently like nightmarishly bad.
I didn't even know what happened.
I didn't either. I had no clue.
Luke was watching some army movie or something.
I was watching like History of the Roman Empire.
Way better.
Which
Isn't
is
that amazing?
Yeah.
You don't even know what he's doing.
How does CNN have the authority to do this, given what they've been doing in terms of putting out garbage news? How do they get the authority to have a town hall with Biden?
I don't know, and Biden wanted to do it, but there's a couple other things too. There was a point where Biden said that corporations aren't paying a cent, and then he made the okay sign and looked through it, and then started whispering for dramatic effect or something. There was obviously he said that he raced Colin Powell, and that Colin Powell he says, well, I won only because he was worried I was going to crash into him. I think that's actually an accurate statement. I'd be scared that he would crash into me as well. So thank you. He misspeaks on Taiwan. This one wasn't that strange, but it was kind of funny. Biden said, if China attacks Taiwan, we will intervene. And the White House was like, stop, don't say that. And then the last one, what was the last one? He forgets the name of the Long Beach port. Now this, I'm going to read you this quote, and I want you to just take it in. Quote, 40% of all products coming, I'm sorry, I'm going to start over. This is from Joe Biden, and I want it really to sink in. Quote, 40% of all products coming into the United States of America on the West Coast go through Los Angeles and... What am I doing here?
What?
Wow. Cooper interjected.
That's the quote.
That's it. What am I doing here?
And then Cooper interjected not to press him on his inability to finish a sentence or properly govern, but to give him the answer, because that's typically what you have an adversarial media do, is fill in the answers for the president who can't finish a sentence.
What am I doing here?
What am I saying here? Where am I going here? That's what he meant. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. If it were the first time,
I think the problem is the media does that. So when Joe Biden says "Tuna na siya pressure," the media, like, I'll give you a better example because that one's silly.
That one was pretty good though.
Joe Biden will say something like, Americans, we gotta raise taxes on the 1%. And the media will say, Joe Biden said to raise taxes on the 1%. They won't show you that he struggled to speak, he stuttered, he stammered. They'll put quotes in place. And they'll put, Americans, need to tax, the 1%, because they have to cut out all of the things where he's screwing up. If the dude literally says, what am I doing here? That's not something you normally say. You'd go like this. Here's what I'd say. 40% of all products coming into the U.S. on the West Coast go through L.A. and what's the other one? Long Beach. They go through Long Beach. I wouldn't go, oh, what am I doing here? Now, if you're a senile old man, you'd say, what am I doing here? And then I got to tell you, if that were me with Biden, Cooper interjected, is it Long Beach? Long Beach, thank you. I'd respond with, oh, Mr. President, you're on television live doing a town hall. Is everything all right?
Whatever state he's in.
Whatever state of mind.
If it were the first, 5th, 10th time, but it's systematic, and it is. You can't ignore it. It's out there, and everybody knows. It's just nobody's talking about it.
I mean, we talk about it. This is a funny thing. You guys see the clip with Barry Weiss on CNN with Brian Stelter?
Of course.
You see that. So Barry Weiss, she's been doing a pretty good job, I would say. She's been doing a pretty great job, actually, calling out the stuff. And she was on CNN, and she was like, look at all the stuff that's going on with CRT in schools, and we can't talk about it. We're not allowed. And then Brian Stelter's like, what do you mean not allowed? People talk about it all the time. And it's like, no, Brian, you don't. You never talk about it. You lie. You get in the periphery. You ignore it. He gave 10 seconds to Andy Ngo, and Andy Ngo got beaten by Antifa because he had to. He didn't do a segment on the dangerous journalist's face. So no, people don't talk about it.
Well, no, I mean, a classic example of this is the Kyle Rittenhouse case. So people who've seen the video know the facts, know he's innocent. However, if you talk to the average Kenosha juror, they don't know that. 60% of them presume he's guilty, and the reason why they presume he's guilty is because of mainstream media. It's why we have to go through an extensive jury selection process in the 2 weeks just to get what he's constitutionally entitled to, a presumed innocent jury.
We got this tweet.
Great tweet. Best
Paul Begala.
Oh my gosh.
That sound you hear is the shattering of the right-wing myth about POTUS not being sharp. His wit, command of details, personal engagement are impressive. He's clearly on the top of his game. Not even recommending that folks inject bleach.
But now here's the thing. I read this, not knowing who this guy was. I would think this was satire if I did not know who that.
It's not the BB. Yo, I know Paul Begala. I mean, we talked. I worked in the Clinton White House in the summer of 1993. Begala used to be an old school populist. He used to be indistinguishable from Steve Bannon.
Wow.
He got a lot of money, became a corporate, whatever language you can use on YouTube. Yes.
So
Trump never told people to inject bleach.
Yeah, of course not. It was all nonsense. I mean, it was a ridiculous exaggeration. Now, partially, Trump could have handled aspects of that better, but it's just they need to live in their own world to such a degree they have to now create their own world, and it's going to backfire over time.
I got a little flack for being a little critical of Trump on that video where I said when his excuse was that it was sarcasm was probably not the right word for what he was intending to do there.
Right, yeah.
But I swear to you, that could be as easily parody as seriousness. Could you click on his profile so we could read the
bios and what's it
apparently
called?
it's not going to let me.
He used to be James
I got
Carville's partner.
Okay.
Back in the day.
Oh, did he really?
Oh yeah. He helped Harris Wofford win in 1991.
235,000 followers. Author of You're Fired: The Perfect Guide to Beating Donald Trump. CNN contributor. Counselor for President Clinton. Dopey flunky according to Trump.
Oh, well, yes.
That's true. He is now a dopey.
So I look. Joe Biden's town hall.
Can you click on his profile picture?
He stuttered. He stammered. He was all over the place. He voted.
Okay.
There you
I
go.
know. I know who he is.
But he's vaccinated too.
Biden did not come off as strong. The cornholio thing was weird enough.
It was very weird because I thought someone freeze framed it, and I didn't realize the video was still running.
I think he may have been seizing or having a stroke.
Ooh.
It's why Rogan said there's no way he took the actual shot. Because they're like, you watch this guy, you want to give him a shot, and you want to see what he might do, how he might react on live TV.
Yeah, well, there's a number of reasons why I don't think he took the shot, and I agree with Rogan. It's because there's too much risk if he actually did. Because there are people who have adverse reactions to it. There are people who do take it and pass out. So if you're at the White House PR, and when you have, if you're doing the White House PR, be like, okay, give him the shot later, maybe, but give him some fake shots because the risk risk is too overwhelming for them to take, and they would never take that risk.
I get the idea, I just disagree. I think the simple solution tends to be the correct one. Joe Biden was on a soundstage. They controlled the feed. They could have given him the shot, and then they just turn it off afterwards anyway.
But there was journalists there, right?
Oh, come on.
in the room.
Yeah, a lot of them would have covered it up.
Journalists.
Having heard both
Sorry,
arguments.
the government establishment repeaters that regurgitate all the diarrhea and hot trash that the
Biden's
government
puppet
gives
parents.
them. Yeah. Now, I was learning about Caligula today. He's
boy.
the mad emperor in
Caligula's horse.
the Roman Empire, and he suffered a brain injury. But before his brain injury, he was actually known as a really great emperor, as a really great leader, a people person who gave the people what they wanted, was very diplomatic, was very smart. Then he had this weird brain injury, and then he went crazy. He went mad. He went through...
He made his horse a senator.
Exactly. He went through... He did a lot of things we can't even mention on this show. This show was a family-friendly show, but he had cognitive decline and utterly created chaos throughout the entire Roman Empire. As I'm watching this, as I'm learning this, I'm like, holy cow! Now we have a presidency that clearly the president is going through major cognitive decline. Clearly, the man has 2 brain stints inside of his head right now as we're speaking. Clearly, he's not all there, and we have utter chaos all around us.
We got to keep the focus on CNN, my friends.
Oh yeah.
Check this one out. Joe Rogan calls CNN's Don Lemon a dumb mother for
Wow.
doubling down on a horse dewormer narrative, saying you can't allow people to say things that are absolutely untrue when you have a effing news organization, Rogan said. Well, Joe,
Doesn't pull his punches.
buddy, Don Lemon doubled down and claimed that you did in fact ingest horse dewormer, which is a lie, and you thought that was bad. CNN tripled down. CNN defends Joe Rogan treatment in fiery statement. Eric Wemple of the Washington Post accurately points out CNN is acting more like an advocacy group than an actual news organization. He says this: CNN statement sounds more like the work of an advocacy group than a journalism outfit. The issue actually begins and ends with the integrity of CNN's content. He says if we take Rogan's prescription claim at face value, and CNN hasn't challenged it, the network's coverage was slanted in some cases and straight up incorrect in others. Here's their quote. CNN says, the heart of this debate has been purposefully confused and ultimately lost. It's never been about livestock versus human dosage of ivermectin. The issue is that a powerful voice in the media, who by example and through his platform sowed doubt in the proven and approved science of vaccines while promoting the use of an unproven treatment for COVID-19, a drug developed to ward off parasites in farm animals. The only thing CNN did wrong here was bruise the ego of a popular podcaster who pushed dangerous conspiracy theories and risked the lives of millions of people in doing so. Joe, sitting before me are 2 wonderful lawyers.
Yes,
I
please.
Would you
Give him some advice on suing the pants off CNN, please.
Yes, please.
Please.
I mean, be careful what you say about Don Lemon, because I'm currently suing him for sexual assault of a bartender, Dustin Heiss.
Wow.
I mean,
Okay.
he is credibly accused, the Harvey Weinstein of the media.
Wow.
And he has so far dodged and evaded responsibility and accountability. We'll see if that happens come trial in January. But Joe clearly has a very good claim. I mean, this is repeated libel, and they're clearly just going to accelerate, and they're going to keep doing it. And I hope he does take action. I know in the past he's been reluctant, but at some point he has to for the benefit of everyone else. Because if Joe Rogan sits there and takes it, other people will think they don't have a fighting chance.
How would he do it? What would he do? Hire? Just find a?
Oh, yeah,
should he
ju-
contact you?
Joe, just file suit and file. Joe has plenty of good lawyers,
Oh,
but
yeah.
so all he's got to do is file a libel suit, file it right there in the Western District of Texas in the Austin division where he now resides, and file it against CNN and go after them. I mean, the anti-SLAPP statute doesn't apply there, so he doesn't have to worry about fees.
You have Don Lemon, not Don Lemon, sorry, Sanjay Gupta on his own podcast saying CNN shouldn't have done
Yup.
it. What do they
Yup.
do after that? They do it 2 more times.
So-
Now, I want to say one thing. Washington Post calling CNN activist journalism is the pot calling the kettle black. But at the very least, they got it right here. But Robert, someone in the comment section of our last highlight said, what would his damages be? He hasn't sustained any damages. So what would?
Well, I mean, that'd be up to the jury to determine. But I mean, at a minimum, he could get a factual finding that CNN lied about him, and that has value and utility right out of the gate.
And
I mean,
also, discovery should be extremely interesting to
Yeah.
how they decided to say it's horse medicine when a doctor prescribed it to him.
when I brought suit for all the Covington kids, the goal was to stop and prevent them from telling these kind of lies, because typically ordinary people can't fight back. Joe can fight back, and that's why he should fight back for the people who cannot fight back.
Joe can write a check to a law firm and completely forget about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then he'll get an email saying, hey, Joe, here's the update. Here's what they said. sign off here. If you agree, here's what we're going to respond with. And I'll go, you got it.
I mean, it was patent libel. They said that he took something he didn't take, and they knew that was a lie.
But your point with Sanjay Gupta is even better. They said he took something he didn't take. Their chief medical correspondent said they are wrong, and then they said it again.
They shouldn't have done that, Joe. Why didn't you press him? I don't know. And then they do this
again.
afterwards.
That's come on, it's a slam dunk.
No, and then they purport that he's the one who's in the wrong for being offended by their libel. I mean, it's nuts.
Sanjay Gupta went on his show and said, we lied. We messed up. We got this one wrong. And now they're like, they had him on. I mean, I don't even want to think what they did to him in the backstage when they brought in Sanjay Gupta for that screw up. And now he had to go on national television and then go back on what he said on the Rogan podcast.
I'm just gonna reveal to you guys. See, I was actually going to hire Joe Rogan for $1 billion.
Oh.
But once I found out he took horse medicine, I had to cancel that deal. Sorry, Joe, that's $1 billion in damages.
Well, he probably does have some damages claims because there are going to be some people who don't listen to him and some limitation on his ratings. And given the scale that he's at, it doesn't take long to get to 10 million plus. And we know CNN wrote at least some sizable check to Nicholas Sandmann when they were caught lying to him. They're currently facing a major lawsuit from Project Veritas for lying about Project Veritas and James O'Keefe. So, but Rogan would put them at the most exposure, mostly in the court of public opinion, but financially as well.
Do you guys see the Netflix thing, the Netflix protest?
Yes.
So this guy, his name is Vito, I think, right?
Yeah, the comedian.
They attacked him. They tore his sign apart.
Said he had a weapon after they
Said he
tore
had a
it.
weapon.
Threw his friend down on the floor that hit his head.
Well, that was Dick Masterson.
Yeah.
He's a comedian. He's a podcaster. He's well known.
Yeah.
So they attacked these people. The crazy thing was the AP took a photo of this guy Vito when he was saying something like Black Lives Matter, agreeing with them, and they said that he was like the aggressor who was clashing or attacking. And because it was an AP stock photo, every outlet that picked it up shared the same false caption.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is libel. I mean, that's exactly what the Covington kid case was.
Well, here's my question. If one of these outlets uses an AP source that says it, are they responsible?
Yes, they are.
So
every publisher.
Every single publisher is responsible.
Absolutely. Every single one.
You guys should hit up Vito.
Sounds great.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, all of them. I mean, there's so many credible suits, but I think the utility for Rogan is this is CNN and this is the context of COVID coverage.
Right.
And this is critical and essential that they let the court fully determine who told the truth and who's been lying. And that has value to everybody.
Would there be any relevance in real life damages with people who listened to this propaganda and say that they had, parasites and they couldn't, use
it would be
ivermectin
very
for its real
difficult.
purposes?
Now, the left has been pursuing those theories in a wide range of other cases, but normally that would be too distant in order to get damages.
The amazing thing is, my underlying belief in all of this is they didn't run with the dewormer story because they believed anybody believed it. They wanted to create the hype so they could go get some people out there who don't really get good news to go take dewormer, the veterinary application, not the human, so they could then say, look, people actually did it after we spent 2 weeks hyping it up.
Well, so one thing that was pointed out by a lot of people, which is a good point, is that by CNN coming out and saying Joe Rogan took horse paste, and then Joe Rogan coming out and saying the medication worked, people are going to believe the Tractor Supply stuff. And that's CNN's fault. Joe also got monoclonal antibodies, the emergency use authorization approved by the FDA that Ron DeSantis was trying to get because they've been using it in Florida. Seems like that stuff really works, and it's approved treatment.
Well, it's what the Biden administration tried to take away from Florida. And
they did.
Yeah.
But according to Ron DeSantis, he fought against this, and this is one reason why Florida's cases are so down right now as they are. You look at the New York cases; they're double that of Florida right now, and you see their policies. You see the what kind of restrictions they implemented. The exact opposite of what New York did. So there deserves to be a bigger conversation about these two different approaches, New York and Florida, because it's pretty clear what's happening.
Talk to Tim.
Talk to your doctor about what's
doctor.
I gotta wonder, is the only missing piece here a definitive damage? Because if CNN lies, Sanjay Gupta says, yes, Joe, they lied. I mean, that's clear admission, right?
He said they shouldn't have done it, but it would be you can get a declaratory judgment like Robert suggested during our last live stream. nominal damages.
And in reality, he's got at least 10 million. He could get an expert to say he's got 10 million in damages.
And
That's
the
just
other
realistic
issue
because
is-
of the scale that he operates.
He never actually said that it was the I word, the ivermectin, that the horse dewormer that made him better. He never even promoted any of it. He just said, "This is what I'm on. My doctors gave it to me." 3 days later, he said, "I feel better. My test is now showing I'm negative."
Yep.
It never even credited to any one element of what he was taking. He was on a strict regimen of stuff prescribed by a doctor.
Plus, Rogan also says that they changed the way that he looked. They used
Yeah.
a filter to make him look a lot sicker than he was from his original
They
Instagram
did
video.
it with Trump. They make Trump look more
So
orange.
is there a possibility to even pursue that legally? Is that an option as
all
well?
of that could be pursued. And then you throw in that the FDA piggybacked off of this. The FDA put out that fake tweet that Gupta was talking about with
Yeah.
Rogan that was deliberately and this is, I'm suing the FDA right now for their bait and switch on what they did with the vaccine. They lie. They right now have military surgeons and military doctors going in and faking labels to try to convince people that they're getting something different than
What
what's
is this?
actually. So what it is you have currently, the only thing that's available is the EUA. So the emergency use authorized under the law, you can't force that. There's an informed consent requirement. It's the Nuremberg Code put into law. So, what the defense secretary said is the only thing we're going to require is the approved, the FDA biologic licensed one, not any of the EUA
Community.
ones. Exactly, but it's not available. And Pfizer has said they're not going to be producing it for months.
Mm-hmm.
So some smart soldiers, we brought suit against the FDA saying they shouldn't have licensed Comirnaty as long as it was unavailable.
Is that how you pronounce it? Comirnaty?
I don't even know how to pronounce it, but it's supposed to be like mRNA in between and then COVID at the beginning and whatever at the end. It's like quasi exactly.
I think they make it confusing deliberately.
Completely.
Sounds too much like comorbidity, which is what I
it
didn't
does.
like.
Yes.
Now, but here's my
appropriate.
question. The FDA has said that they are interchangeable in the same formulation.
They have and they haven't. So what they said is it's medically interchangeable in ways that don't impact safety and efficacy. However, that's really misleading because under the EUA approvals, you do not have to comply with good manufacturing policies. Under the EUA policy procedures, you have a whole different liability. You're completely immune. Everybody's completely immune.
Right.
Once it shifts to a licensed product, it has to go through a different manufacturing process. It has to meet good manufacturing policies. It has to be distributed in a certain way. And it actually is medically different. They claim it won't impact safety and efficacy, but that's mostly speculative. And last but not least, it has a whole different legal liability risk. And by law cannot be compelled. And yet what you have is the Defense Department misleading their own soldiers to the degree they're mislabeling a drug that's not even available according to the FDA's own terms.
And the mainstream media is running with headlines: approved by the FDA, safe and effective, 100%. Dr. Fauci,
technically
safe and
the truth.
effective.
Technically the truth. The Pfizer did get a vaccine approved by the FDA.
Exactly. But
what
they
they
don't
would-
tell you everything else.
But what
in
they
between.
do
not
is
available.
Yeah.
they would say because it's the Pfizer vaccine, people assume the Pfizer-BioNTech is the exact same thing.
Exactly.
So I read that it said it was interchangeable. Except
medically interchangeable as to safety and efficacy. But even that's misleading. That's why we sued him. We sued him in the Eastern District of Tennessee. Going to have a hearing in 2 weeks about it. Because
what's the has anything happened?
The government filed their opposition. We filed our reply. The judge is going to have a hearing first week of November.
So if the media is the one lying though, what's your claim? Like what
No,
are you claiming?
it's the FDA lied because the FDA misled everybody. They buried in the footnotes the truth. They knew legally they could not issue a biologic licensed approval until and unless they revoked the emergency use authorized drugs as required by law. And they chose not to do so in order to force the mandates on people in violation of the Nuremberg Code.
Oof.
And that's what they did.
Wow.
And they don't
Yep.
even deny that functionally.
Yep.
They just claim we can't sue. They claim nobody can sue them.
So you're having a hearing in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Let's go to the we'll hear about that.
Yeah.
When we get the update. But I want to use this opportunity to talk about I think we're getting into the territory where everything's going absolutely insane. And so we have this tweet here which exemplifies it and makes me very happy. Rachel Bay says the officials who represent Maryland's 3 westernmost counties in the General Assembly have asked if their counties can join West Virginia.
Yes.
So a lot of people don't know this.
That's me.
West Virginia and Virginia were one state. Then the Civil War happened, and West Virginia and Virginia went bye-bye. West Virginia said, we think slavery is bad. We're with the North. We want to stay in the Union. Virginia said, we're going to be the capital of the Confederacy. Right now, we're starting to see it's getting so bad politically, especially with the story you're telling about the FDA and the risks we have, the censorship, the media. We operate right now. This studio is in one of these counties. I am very excited to hear that this is happening. We have these 2 letters. First, this is from Speaker Roger Hanshaw and President Craig Blair. It says, Speaker Hanshaw and President Blair. Or it's to them, sorry. We, the undersigned state representatives for Garrett and Allegheny counties in the state of Maryland, request that you consider adding us as constituent counties to the state of West Virginia. We believe this arrangement may be mutually beneficial for both states and for our local constituencies. Please advise on next steps. And then, I love this one. Speaker Henshaw and President Blair, we, the undersigned state representatives for Washington County in the state of Maryland, also request you consider adding Washington County as a constituent county to the state of West Virginia. We believe this arrangement may be mutually beneficial for both states and for our local constituencies. Please advise on next steps. I live in West Virginia. Because it's a tri-state, you know, we shop sometimes in Virginia. We go for dinner. I live in West Virginia, but we work in Maryland, so we're just between all three. Delegate Mike McKay and Delegate William Wivel, we are here as our eager constituents wanting to help in any way possible to allow us to join with West Virginia. Look, so West Virginia, I live there. I'm a resident. I have constitutional carry. It's fantastic. It's way better. Maryland is Western Maryland, where we are. It's effectively West Virginia. If you ask anybody
Very
around here,
conservative, yeah.
there's a guy who lives over here. He's got these massive signs that say like swamp 40 miles that way. He's pointing to DC. Says bring your boots. Amazing sign, by the way. And the people here would love it to not be under the boot of Baltimore.
Oh, yeah, culturally, socially, economically, politically. I mean, they're right in the middle of the place that triggered the last Civil War. I mean, Harper's Ferry
great,
sits right on the end of the old John Brown. So so it makes sense. And what has to happen is the Maryland, West Virginia and Maryland legislatures have to approve, and then Congress has to approve.
Never going to happen.
Probably not, but maybe, because if you're Maryland, do you really want Western Maryland? If you're the Democrats in Baltimore, you probably would love to jettison them.
Yeah,
if you're West
then-
Virginia, why
yeah.
not add your territory, add some tax base?
You'll get a Democrat governor every time if you get rid of Western
The
Maryland.
only thing is probably they would look at congressional representation. Would it give West Virginia enough to add back their third seat that they lost?
Yeah, no.
Hypothetically, this ever happens, what's the time frame? How long would that?
Oh, it can happen
possibly-
quickly. I mean, it requires both legislatures and Congress. It can happen with. I mean, the old days they used to approve states within weeks, within months.
So what do we have to do to encourage this?
That's a good question. I mean,
Should we
I wouldn't
encourage it?
encourage anything that too provocative.
Well,
But,
look, this is just people saying we're not like the people of DC and Baltimore. We're more like West Virginia. So
Well, just convince the people in D.C. and Baltimore that Western Maryland is really holding them back. They just need to jettison them and give them to West Virginia.
it's a good point. You don't want to have these maggots, voting in your elections.
Yeah.
Maryland's got a Republican governor.
Exactly.
Oh,
It would be
man.
a Democratic governor if they would just let these counties go.
That's
right.
right.
But I don't think they would. It's a lot like what's happening in Oregon. You know, the eastern Oregon counties are also.
They want out.
They
yeah.
voted, right? They voted too.
Eastern Washington wants out.
Yep.
They would like to join Greater Idaho, make Idaho like a true Idaho.
You know, it's funny having grown up my whole life in a city and then lived in New York and then ultimately just being like, it's better to not live in these cities because they're insane.
Yeah.
It is funny. I drove through New York to get here, had coffee with my best friend in New York, and it was I know my frame of the world has changed with what's happened in the last 2 years, but it was the first time I really appreciated, I forget who said it, that living in a big city is like prisoners sort of learning to love their imprisonment. And, we're in New York. I see people in the park playing violin. I see people, everyone's talking, everyone's trying to make the best of life in New York. But it was the first time that it really felt like the city was too much. It looked like people were just trying to make the best of their living, but that people didn't really love it anymore. But that might have been a lot of projection coming from me. But
Did you
intense.
stop in New York City?
Yeah, New York City proper. It was in Lower East Side.
I grew up
Did
in New York City.
Did you need to present your papers to get that coffee?
I did not. I didn't because we drank it outside. Everybody,
that's the rule.
and I said on my channel, I got both shots. Everyone knows because I've crossed the border. But I refuse. I mean, except for bowling with my kids. Where's the camera that I have to apologize to again? Except for bowling with my kids that one day, I refuse to do it.
But
I don't eat out anymore.
Do you have like a card? Like in
No,
Canada?
I have a picture of my paper. Literally, the funny thing is, after I got my second shot, I took a picture of the paper they printed out at the pharmacy, sent it to my wife with a very funny joke, like, haha, the papers when they ask. And it became a very funny email that I sent to my wife, because they literally, when we were traveling to New Brunswick, they like, show me your papers. I had only had one shot at the time. I was like, man, they're gonna tell me I can't go on a family vacation now.
That's ridiculous.
This
That is so
crazy,
draconian.
This is the crazy thing to me. I mean, and that would work in New York City.
It's working. It's working. Every sign said, you want to sit down indoors, vaccine passport.
No, I mean the fact that you've got a picture of a piece of paper, and that's like, okay,
So what's stopping people from,
Oh, there's massive already in New York.
There's,
Yeah.
Massive fake paperwork.
I have had. I mean, I will never do it because I don't trust it not to get hacked in terms of like disclosed to the authorities. But I know people who are providing
Personally, I know nobody. I have no idea.
That's right. I don't
Yeah.
know anyone.
I take it back. I know nobody, but like I said,
But there's a high probability that there are a
It's-
lot of these people, and that's why these numbers of how many people actually took this or have this should be questioned.
I don't
Yeah,
represent
just,
any of them, so.
Just what if someone like went to Mexico and then just went to a doctor? And,
Well, that's the key, is that you get international. That's what they can't control. That's what there's no U.S. tracking for. That's why ultimately the goal is to have international tracking. Have a little
Right.
chip in your
An app.
body that everybody can be universal.
they already got a chip in your passport.
The World Economic Forum called for a global passport system of medical records that keep you up to date with your status and your tests that will be used with internationally, with all the countries being synced into the same system. That's literally what they were just talking about months ago. So this has been planned for a very long time.
Part of your financial system.
Yep.
That's why they're talking about FedCoin. That's going to be part of your identification.
Yeah, the Bank of
all
England.
it.
The Bank of England is literally talking about building a cryptocurrency that's centralized, controlled by them. Just after a few days ago, one of their spokespersons said that Bitcoin's going to destroy the financial markets, as they're calling for their own Bitcoin. That's FedCoin, controlled by them at every level.
You imagine the control. They could cut off your ability to buy gas, buy food, do anything.
And that's literally their plan. That's the
good.
social credit score. It's already exists in China, and there's plans to implement it here in the United States through the vaccine mandate, through the vaccine passports. It's a social credit score in a Trojan horse.
They'll experiment on Canada first.
Well, and I just don't understand the rationale behind the vaccine passport. You can go in, order your coffee, then leave, but you can't sit down in there to drink your coffee. As if the double vaccination is the criteria that's the most relevant, and not if you're worried about transmission, a negative test. But it's nuts. But people are putting up with it in Canada. In New York, there's a little more defiance.
So I can explain it. It's actually quite simple. So if you walk into a restaurant, you need to wear your mask because for people, walking around, the COVID is at head level. But when you sit down, now you can take your mask off and things. Okay. Now, however, if you're not vaccinated, it actually inverts. You're okay standing up, walking in, but sitting down is when you get problems.
No,
You
not
see, it's very
anymore. They
obvious.
changed that rule. You have to, even if you're vaccinated, still wear the masks. And in Australia, this virus usually goes to sleep at around 8 p.m. when the government says that there's a curfew. So this is
that's when it's most active.
and also
No.
very
Look.
strangely,
You
hold
got it
on.
backwards. You got it backwards.
It's also a super spreader event when it comes to Republican protest, but it's something that heals people during leftist Black Lives Matter protests.
You have it
It's a
backwards.
woke virus.
At 8 p.m. is when it's most active. That's why everyone has to stay home.
Unless you're Joe Biden,
okay.
and then you don't even have to wear the mask and you go into a high-end restaurant.
Well,
Exactly.
everybody knows
Yep.
that Joe Biden is the healthiest president we've ever had.
Exactly.
So he's,
Very
he's
much so.
fit as a fiddle.
Yeah. Yes.
I'll one up the insanity. Did I talk about the isolating kids in Canada?
No,
Because
Yeah,
we got
I
an
heard about
email
that.
from school. I did a video on this because I didn't believe it was true. Where out of Ontario, they were saying
horrible.
if a kid came in contact with someone who tested positive, that kid has to isolate. And then you saw people tweeting online, "My kid's crying in the bedroom. I'm slipping food under the door with
Yep.
the."
I saw that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
So bad.
and now I don't know if I believe those tweets because you have to be a little skeptical. But then we in our community got a recommendation. Kids 8-year-old kids in a class came in contact with a kid who tested positive. All kids were asymptomatic, if they were even infected, but they tested negative. No symptoms, negative test, had to isolate for 10 days. And I expressed some discontent with the government policy, say this is idiotic. And then total coincidence, the next day the government issues a correction. No longer need to isolate an 8-year-old kid who's tested negative with no symptoms. It is. I don't know what they're doing. Like there's that guy Awaken with JP who puts out some good videos.
Yeah.
This is what we do today. Throw something on the wall. That's going to be the criteria.
It's the problem with all
exactly.
these vaccine mandates. All of them are about asymptomatic risk. I mean, there is no real risk. The only limitation the vaccine mandate lawsuits that they should expand upon is asymptomatic risk is not a meaningful risk of spread.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing the vaccine purports to solve, and it doesn't solve
Allegedly,
by its own admission.
Allegedly.
Yeah,
Again,
exactly.
and all the data should be questioned because all the data is coming from Pfizer, and Pfizer has been caught fudging the data, fudging the trials,
and-
kicking people out of trials that get sick from the vaccine, like that 12-year-old that ended up in a wheelchair, and then she was a part of the trial group, and when the trial group or the report came out, she wasn't a part of it.
I can't go into details, but there'll be a
we
big
gotta-
whistleblower coming out on that precise
Yes.
topic in the next
It's
2 weeks.
crazy what's happening.
We got to be careful with anecdotes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
As far as
Oh, no, I represent a whistleblower who will be...
No, that's different.
Yeah,
that's
that's
different. I just
different.
mean like, my concern is, someone will see a story and they'll say, this proves my view of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
There's tons of that, of course.
Well,
Right,
see, and you, causation correlation. And anecdotes prove nothing except that you have an example. But I just love the fact that everybody now trusts Pfizer who paid
2.3 billion.
2.3 billion. They trust Merck, who paid however much for hiding
Johnson
the fact
and
that
Johnson.
and they
Here's a
trust
little-
the government.
here's a little baby talc for
In
you.
Canada, the government just apologized for its horrible treatment of the Indigenous with its residential schools.
You know-
We did it for their own good at the time, or we said we did.
Yes.
We knew they were dying. We hid it. Now we apologize for it. Trust us today.
Did you guys hear this Johnson and Johnson thing? I think it's the talcum powder, right?
Yeah.
They're separating it off they're spinning off a new company
Yep.
and then bankrupting it, so they don't got to pay a settlement.
getting rid of it.
Exactly.
It's hilarious to see that in leftist subreddits where they're like evil corporation, but then also like haha MAGAs are dumb for not getting vaccinated.
Yes.
It's atrocious.
Completely. And the cases that they're citing are the cases that were used for eugenics in the 19th and 20th century. So it's very dangerous what's happening legally, politically, across the board. And
People, I want to stress this point too, because people often say when we had Michael Schellenberg, for instance, he's like, what about when people say we've had other mandates like MMR and stuff? And I'm like, I've never been required to get a vaccine to go to 7-Eleven before.
Exactly. Not only that, there's always been religious accommodations for all those child vaccines. There's always been medical accommodations. There's always been prior immunity accommodations. So we've never had it. And again, those, as you note, were limited to kids for public education for which you could opt out. So it's a completely unanalogous comparison that a lot of these people are using.
The virus itself is not analogous either, because
Exactly.
measles, mumps, rubella actually posed a meaningful risk for kids.
Right.
We're talking now in Canada, compelled vaccination of 5 to 11-year-olds for in Canada 300,000 some odd cases, 1,500 hospitalizations, 15 deaths, and we just found out 2 weeks ago, at the very least on this occasion, a death they reported in a 14-year-old attributed to COVID. The sister came out and said the kid had stage 4 brain cancer, was hospitalized and in a coma, and they did a test on the kid.
But there's two words here: vaccine mandate, and the most important is mandate. Like University of Denver saying flu vaccines. This is, I think, just the bigger issue, I think, is they want to get people to mandate. They want to get to the point where you have the app where they can start mandating many, many more things than just vaccination. They can mandate any kind of medical procedure.
Well, it goes
And
back
compliance.
to the eugenics era.
Right.
The whole goal was to establish the state's power and the corporate power over the human body, that they control you, you don't control yourself. Once they established that legal precedent, we know where it leads because they gave us forced sterilization and forced detention camps based on ancestry and then ultimately the Nazis. And
There was a lot of really messed up stuff happening in the early 1900s.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what. And when they cite those cases, I'm like, do you recognize you're citing the same Supreme Court that said racial segregation was a good idea?
Well, to be fair though, Derek Bell agreed with Plessy versus Ferguson, and he's like a hero to the wokeists. So
Yeah, I mean
you see
the
where we're at.
levels of insanity. I mean, it's the professional class has too much power. That's the problem.
Let's go to Super Chats, my friends. If you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, become a member at timcast.com. Now let's read what
get to
people
see
are
these.
saying.
That went by so quick.
Yeah,
I was like,
it
it's
really
9:30?
did,
It's
yeah.
9:30 already?
I
I'm
know,
like,
right?
no, I got so much I want to say. And I want to hear from you guys so
Well,
much
hold on,
about so
Tim.
much more about the lawsuits.
Just-
I'm like, oh man.
Everyone should look into the story coming out of Canada that are the health minister, whatever, chief medical officer of Alberta, Dina Hinshaw. She apologized for erroneously describing the death of that 14-year-old kid to COVID when it was stage 4 brain cancer.
Wow.
And she said, causing the family additional grief. This was after some public outcry.
Yeah.
But if they've done it once, I just want to know how many times they've done it before.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we got the meaning of nerd. He says, "Hey Tim, on my channel I analyze pop culture shows and movies and derive a more meaningful and liberty-loving message for my audience from it. I thought of analyzing your song. Can I get permission to use the song in the background, or will I get copyright? I don't believe you will. YouTube has an automated system though, but people have done it before. I won't issue anything though. That's for sure.
You should change the license on the song because otherwise, just I guess it's your word is binding if you do it on video like that.
I'm not going to issue a strike against anybody for using it. I said the other day, by all means, download it, share it, put
You
it on
can
your
go into
computer,
the setting
friends.
on the video.
It's
and
also
change it to
available
Creative
on
Commons.
Amazon.
That's right.
All right, let's see what we got here. Hey Abbott says, never forget the 4 basic rules for firearm safety. If you follow them every time, you'll be safe. Mr. Baldwin managed to break all of those rules at once, and this is what happens. Is the AK guy going to visit the compound?
Yeah, Brandon Herrera.
Working on it.
Yeah, definitely. That'll be awesome. He's an awesome YouTuber.
All right, let's see what we got. John Clark says, F for Viva, direct from Ottawa and Trudeau for Tim.
Yeah.
F is an inside joke. It means I'm late when I'm never late, except that one time I was late.
Except that one
A
time.
lot of people cheering for Viva and Barnes.
Heck yeah. Woo.
Coase Diver says, let's go Brandon.
I think they have a Let's Go Trudeau also now at this point. It's
Nice.
LGT.
I love it.
Samdip Nag says, a Viva Barnes and Tim Fool podcast. This must be the best timeline. Tim Fool, huh? You got me.
Huh, original.
Jack Sparrow says, just take my money. All right.
Okay.
Ethan Randall says, to Viva F.
You do that to us too. Yeah. We're not late.
I love it, but the dedication it takes for someone to give a super chat for one letter. Congratulations.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Wayne Smith says Alec Baldwin has killed more people than all of the January 6th protesters combined.
That's what I'm saying.
Yikes, man. Wow. Cliff Lee, Viva, how were you able to escape Canada? Thought you were incarcerated there.
It was a very... Look, coming out was easy. Going back, I think, is going to be harder than coming to the States.
Interesting.
Even though you're going back to your home country.
And I say, what happens if I don't have a PCR test? How is my government going to keep me out of my own country? But look, I'll get back. And
Does
we'll
the
do a live stream
government
Sunday.
does the government check or does the airline checks? Because
I drove.
No, you
Okay.
drove.
I drove because
So Border Patrol checks if
yeah.
because in the United States, if you come into the United States as an American citizen, you have to show a negative test to the airline, not at customs.
This would have been the case for flying,
Yeah.
and now I have to show apparently a PCR to come in through the land border.
Okay.
It won't be a problem, but it's just it increases
And
costs.
positive vaccine status if you're a
I
visitor.
don't know about the positive vaccine
Yeah.
status, but I know as of November 8th.
Yeah, if you want to visit Canada now, you have to be fully
for
vaccinated.
sure.
All right, I'm going to read it.
Do it.
Alex Ryan says, Tim, watch Biden again. His clenched fists and vacant stare are signs that he's pooping himself.
Oh.
Anyone who's had or attended to kids can recognize the signs. That's actually a good point. I've seen it.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, they do the...
You
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
tell if he was wearing a
Bear
diaper
down.
underneath.
No, I
his-
don't know. He's the
I
president.
will go back and look very thoroughly because
I
that's an
bet-
interesting theory.
He wears
I
the
bet
best
he's got
defense.
like tier 5 2020 model
Super pack.
elite
Yeah.
ultra men's,
Technological
Disposal system.
evaporating diapers.
That's right. Yeah.
yeah. It's a portal.
Yeah. It's a portal.
It just goes right into the sewer.
That's right.
Nathan Dolan says, have Viva and Barnes explain rights to Ian.
Oh.
That would be
Civil
interesting.
Civil rights versus natural rights.
I mean, really, it's civil rights origin and justification can be natural rights. It depends on your perspective as to what justifies it. Technically, what civil rights are in the legal system is it comes from the Constitution, or it comes from a statute, or it comes from the common law. But the question is, where's the moral authority for the Constitution, civil rights, the statutes, civil rights, the common law, civil rights come from? Some would argue, I would argue, natural law. Natural law in the idea that if you're religious, God put sort of imprinted upon us our conscience and our cognitive capacity, the recognition of certain universal moral truths, which, by the way, informed consent used to be one. We called it jus cogens in the international law. We executed people for violating informed consent. That's what the Nuremberg trials were about. We said these rules are so universal. Here's a classic example. So universal, there was no informed consent law in the German statutes, in the German Constitution. So how did we execute people afterwards for violating it? We said that's such a universal recognized law that no civilized society anywhere can violate it.
And are natural rights and human or natural law and human rights, are those synonymous? Because there's human rights and civil rights.
They can be. So many people would say our human rights derive from natural law. Some people don't agree with natural law being the basis of it. So you could have a philosophical disagreement as to the moral justification or authorization for civil rights, but it is for many people the same.
We go through, sometimes we talk about human rights and civil rights, and that do you see those as different?
No, I mean, I see civil rights as expression of human rights, but civil rights don't always capture all the human rights that exist. Hence Martin Luther King's protest and his letter from Birmingham jail.
I have a shorter answer. In Canada, no rights, privileges.
Oh,
I'm being tongue in cheek.
So the argument we had was that, I think, Luke, you were here for this, right, or no? No, you weren't here.
What was happening?
It was Jack Murphy.
think this was
Ian
before
said
Luke,
that
yeah.
rights are culture-based and that you're effectively granted them by the Constitution. And my argument, I think Jack Murphy, is that the rights are inalienable. They're intrinsic to you based on several factors. And there's big moral questions, philosophical questions, but the general idea is saying that our rights come from God doesn't necessarily mean you have to be theistic. It's just like the rights exist within us no matter what. A government can infringe our rights,
Right.
but the rights are always ours. And Ian disagrees. If a culture doesn't agree with it, your right doesn't exist.
Yeah, I think I was defining civil rights, and you were defining natural rights or human rights.
It's if you want to define civil rights as what a particular culture defines, but it doesn't have to be. So for many people, civil rights are just an expression of natural rights. It doesn't have to be an either or. So it's whether or not you believe civil rights are rooted in natural rights is where the debate tends to occur. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, if the culture thinks it's okay to eat baby hearts, then you have a natural right to eat baby hearts.
No, because the natural rights would be objective moral truths.
Right.
If you believe in a certain form of natural law, you believe that these they transcend culture.
Right,
And I
but
think- I
if you're
think
the
the
culture
issue
that's
is, Ian-
deciding what transcends the culture, then
You always have some degree of that, yes. That would be my brother Gordon Barnes debate. So that would be his extensive. He does classes on exactly that
Oh, cool.
in his philosophy classes.
All right, well, let's just read some more
Sounds
super
interesting.
chats. Not spend too much time on one idea. Memetype says, you've been talking about how it's important to create culture outside of a leftist frame. Check out the Foundation for Economic Education. My friend Sean Malone has a YouTube series there analyzing movies from a liberty angle. I think he'd be a great guest for your show. Doesn't Seamus do stuff with them?
Yeah, FEE?
Freedom Tunes.
Yeah, what's the name? Sorry.
Oh,
I
yeah,
didn't
that
see
stuff
it.
is good. That stuff's
Yeah.
great.
It's the best stuff.
Yeah, Freedom Tunes is fantastic.
What's
They
that
might
guy's name
be
you recommended?
there tomorrow too.
I think
Potentially, maybe.
Luke,
our
stop
Diva,
it.
our interview with Stick Hammer.
There's going to be so
Yeah.
many.
Yeah, there's
going
gonna be a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One
I'm
of
like-
our brief interviews with Styx Hexenhammer, they produced it's phenomenal. the
Yeah, they
cartoon.
did.
Cool. Ken Davis says, every handgun is loaded. That is correct. We have a whole lot of people saying, yay, Viva and Barnes.
Yes.
Josiah Magnuson says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Alec Baldwin, probably.
Indeed, yes.
Oh,
Technically correct.
Yikes.
The internet is a mean place.
I love it.
Alec Baldwin is going to want to avoid it for the next 10 years. I mean,
I
that's
think that was Michael Malice in disguise.
Yes, it probably was.
Oh,
All right, let's see. Someone asks, who was taking pics of, I can't read the name, who was taking pics of Alex crying on the phone? Is PR or paparazzi? It's interesting the question that there are people there taking pictures after it happened.
Right.
high res photos.
Right.
That looks like from a professional camera.
Do you guys think it's like
it wasn't a cell
sign-
phone or
a sign of a sick society that people are making fun of this guy who murdered his coworker on accident?
It's probably not a sign of a healthy, happy society.
Yeah.
Not happy, that's for sure.
Ordinarily, these types of jokes you would make them much later on after the tragedy has settled.
Tragedy plus time equals
Yeah,
comedy.
but this is social media where people say
And he rushed right to it.
Yeah, and Malice is. It's not that he's remorseless. I mean, he's making the quips that a lot of people are thinking. He just doesn't have the filter that most people have. But the world needs all types of people. But people have gotten into the habit of, not waiting.
Well, the
before
cool thing
making
with
the-
Malice is he punches up. He doesn't
does,
punch
yeah.
down.
Yeah.
And people have different reaction to trauma. Some people laugh. Some people, are sad. But
It
there's
was-
different human reactions to
It was
it.
Dave
as well.
Chappelle's point. As long as you're really punching up, and a lot of the wokesters have actually been punching down, not
Yeah.
up.
Those Netflix protests proving exactly
Yes.
what Dave Chappelle was talking about in
Precisely.
his special.
And I will say, in the instance of Alec Baldwin, you kind of have to ask yourself how he would respond if something like this happened to someone like James Woods. What do you think he would be doing? Do you think that body would be cold before he would be being a complete jerk?
Oh,
on
yeah.
Twitter?
Well, he's
I
had
don't.
that reputation in Hollywood for a long
Yeah,
time.
he's
I only
not
ran
a
into him
nice-
once, and
not
he
a
was an
nice
ass then,
person.
so I have no
Yeah.
sympathy.
All right, Nicholas Lipset says, saw your part about buying a guitar right now. I ordered a trumpet in May 2020. Should have taken a couple months. I still don't have it.
Whoa.
So we went out and bought the music equipment for doing the shows here, bought a couple guitars, and I went to the shop and they told me that if you order a guitar right now, it's a 15-month wait.
Wow.
Talk
Yeah.
about supply chain issues.
Supply
And those
chain
are only
issues.
going to get worse. Those are not going to get better anytime soon.
Yeah, they're dumping empty containers on the side of the road, apparently.
You have problems in China. You have problems in the ships. You have problems in the warehouses. And now you're going to fire a bunch of workers.
Yep.
You're going to fire people in warehouses. You're going to fire them on railroads. You're going to
How
fire
can
them on
this go
trucks
wrong?
because they don't take a drug they don't want to take. And how's that going to help?
In Canada, they've been talking about not overwhelming the healthcare system from the beginning. It was 2 weeks to flatten the curve, so as not to overwhelm the healthcare. Now they were talking about firing thousands of healthcare workers.
You even got
amazing.
a honorary coin for it.
Oh yes, that's a good coin. We posted a picture of that on Locals if anybody wants to see.
All right, Brian Perkins says, I got my Let's Go Brandon shirt from Luke earlier this week. Wore it today and got all kinds of compliments. No hijacking with the real meaning.
Yeah, I mean, this is the best way to make friends. I mean, there's so much speech censored online. We have shirts that I can't wear here because the YouTube videos will probably get taken down. But when I wear them at the public, I get high fives, I get thumbs up, I get a lot of people coming up being like, "I'm with you, man." So if you're in your local community looking for some friends, get a shirt. It's the best way to meet people at thebestpoliticalshirts.com.
Ghost, it actually really is true.
Yeah.
Seriously.
People have jokingly said a Timcast dating site so that the people who share like similar ideas can date. And I'm like, I don't know
love
about all
that.
that, but if you see
Great.
someone wearing a shirt, you're going to be like, yo, and you're going to know right away. All right, Ghost Crusader says, Viva, Barnes, and Timcast finally together and only 6K likes. Hit that like button.
Ah.
Well, we're at 12K likes right now, but at the time they
Nice.
posted it, absolutely smash that like button. Tom's Pants says, Ian, simulation and simulacra are two related but different things. Read some Jean Baudrillard. Is that how you pronounce it?
Baudrillard?
Baudrillard? Or follow Culture Campcast on Twitter to learn about it.
I watched a great documentary on that actually.
On simulacrum?
Yeah, the difference. Well, it was on the simulacrum. Yeah, he's got a book called Simulation and Simulacrum, I think.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's like I think Simulacrum, a good example is at the end of the movie Annihilation when what's her face, Natalie Portman, confronts the weird alien thing mimicking her.
Version
It's like,
of herself.
yeah, it's like not a real thing.
Someone just said Timder in the comment section.
Timder. Yes.
Timder.
I love it.
Janarchy says, 2 days ago, Twitter suspended me for saying Kyle did nothing wrong. Twitter claims it's glorifying violence. They want me to delete the tweet, but I refuse to do so. Still suspended. I figured Robert might be interested in this info.
Yeah, and people, if there's going to be constant updates about the trial at freekyleusa.com, and that's where you can get. There's other things you can do there. Won't mention it on YouTube, but you can get all the updates on the information. He's clearly innocent, and it tells you what era we live in when being innocent is something that's subject to censorship.
Oh yeah. Western Canadian Commentary says, veteran here. Negligent handling of a firearm resulting in death. Does that not mean third-degree murder? What do Viva and Barnes think?
Well, it depends. I mean, look at what the Chauvin trial showed us, right? There's going to be very broad and elastic definitions of various forms of murder and homicide. I mean, you look at the insanity of what they're charging Kyle with. If those standards were applicable, the Baldwin would be in jail without bail tonight. So that's the way I would look at it.
I want to know the circumstance also, because who was it that mentioned the idea it might, whether or not it was part of the movie, whether or not it was a gag, whether or not he was joking around with it. Circumstances, details matter. His knowledge of things matter.
Does he have the innocent Canadian defense? That's the key.
It looks like
I didn't know, eh? It was a loaded gun.
You can't even say gun in Canada. Right, without going to jail.
The gun laws in Canada is a video or a discussion for another day.
It
But
looks like it wouldn't be a misfire or a hanging. It might have been a hanging fire, but the other thing would be a negligent discharge if it just goes off in your hand without you pulling the trigger.
Of a firearm, not if everyone thought it was a
Because he very well just pointed it and pulled the trigger and thought nothing was going to happen.
If this was the average Joe, they would be in jail. Let's just be honest
100%.
here.
Particularly if their politics was on
So
the
what
wrong
do you do?
side.
You nail.
Exactly.
You go criminally after the production company for like murder, and then Alec Baldwin for manslaughter. Or something,
I don't think anything like that will happen because his politics are on his side. Though I don't know the local jurisdiction, but that's what normally you would investigate everything and see whether this was really an accident, because it does seem odd that somebody very familiar with guns in that setting, which Alec Baldwin is, would somehow have it go off and kill somebody. That seems very unexpected and unexplained. And he looks criminal in his culpability at this stage. We don't know all the details, but at this stage, yes.
Interesting. Sniper Olink says, hey, Tim, I watch you guys all the time and hear you talk about shortages. I work in retail and often have to tell customers why we don't have food.
Jeez.
Yikes, man.
Yeah.
Let's see. How do you pronounce that? Dewey Cox says, in Sask, Canada, if you don't have your QR code passport, you can only go to the grocery store and work. Only some work. Recent election was over fraud.
And let that sink in also. You need a vaccine passport to get into certain places where the employees of those places don't need vaccine passports.
That's why mandate is the right word.
Trust the science. I hated the word mandate from back in the practice of law. I hated that word. And now I hate it exponentially more.
Even more.
Mandate.
Michek 4B's first says, all you need to know about the Queen's authority in Commonwealth countries is every officer from dog catcher to prime minister swears obedience to her.
Yeah, I was just reading about this. Where is it? That the Queen can dissolve the House of Commons, but not the Senate can be dissolved at any time by the Queen of Canada, or by Governor the Queen of Canada.
Who is the Queen of England?
That would be Elizabeth. Yes.
What is this?
Queen of Canada?
The Queen has never exercised this power, maybe ever. But it's on the books.
That's the thing. And typically, it's by prerogative, so that when the prime minister does it, it's deemed to be, by recommendation of the Queen. But I would have to look into that.
This is from Canada.ca. The monarchy of Canada is at the core of Canada's constitutional federal structure.
Yeah, it still is legally.
Who's next in line for the crown?
Who is after the Queen? You probably don't care so much.
Meghan, right?
This also says the crown may act on its own with no advice from any other body in the case of a constitutional crisis.
The crown is different than the Queen, though.
What's the difference?
The crown is the state. Is the state. It's
in Canada. But
is
the crown
Queen not
doesn't mean royalty in Canada.
doesn't mean-
it just means the government.
I have
Sometimes
to look into
can
it. I have never even had the slightest interest in what the Queen could do, because it has never been a practical question in any aspect of
You know
the
where it comes
practice.
up legally?
Someone want to look up who's
in
next in
island
line for the
jurisdictions.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
Okay.
In island jurisdictions, you appeal to the Queen if you get screwed. So, like my fraud cases, like if it's in Guernsey or someplace like that, Isle of Man, you actually can go up to the Queen. Technically, doesn't work anywhere, but theoretically.
Figure out who it is.
I think of them as like sitting in the road blocking traffic and being like, I'm not doing anything. Like people are like, hey, get out of the way. And they're like, I'm not doing anything. I'm
Charles?
just sitting here. And you're like, well, you own all the land. You're doing
Charles.
something passively by
Isn't Charles
controlling-
the guy who's like looks like he's an exhumed corpse?
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit.
Like he was in the car and he was like, and
Yeah,
they're
he's
like,
super
"Whoa,
old."
this guy's
Yeah.
not doing too well. What if he's just like out of it, and then like Queen Elizabeth passes because she was just in the hospital, and then as soon as he gets in, he goes nuts, and he like makes crazy declarations and dissolves Australia.
Well, for a while they had that worry because the Nazis were recruiting. Who was it? One of the dukes that was could be king back in the late 30s.
Oh,
They had to
wow.
hide him out in the Bahamas because he went AWOL. They
I-
made him renounce.
I know when we are venturing out of my area of expertise. And now
Same.
I don't know. It would make life interesting, I guess. Charles just shows up and he's like, Canada's gone, Australia's gone, the Pitcairn Islands, I'm keeping those.
He made some interesting comments about population control, and they do have a lot of extensive ties to some people that do really bad things to children.
Oh, there's
but
Prince Andrew.
I'm not going to
Prince
get
Andrew.
going on the show here. So
All right. Neo Ritter says, you got to cut Canada some slack. They've only been a sovereign country for just shy of 40 years. They still have some time to go before they figure out that freedom thing.
No,
Is that true?
No, it's 1867 was when Upper and Lower Canada. I hope I'm not embarrassing myself. I took the course twice. 1867 was the unification or the Constitution. When did it unify? Upper and Lower. It's existed for over 140 years now.
Yeah, the Confederation, 1867.
Yeah, but there was the unification of Upper and Lower Canada, but then the Constitution of 1867, which was amended or added to with the Constitution of 1982, which was the one that was supposed to guarantee the charter rights, which is what we were discussing.
Charter privileges.
Tin Man says, I need little dancing mushroom toys that scream Alex Jones quotes. So I don't know if in the vlog, there's this
love
really
that.
funny comic where Ian goes mushroom hunting and he finds a mushroom, but it's Alex Jones.
I
So
love
the
it so
mushroom
much.
is just Alex Jones talking and then screaming.
That'd be good. That'd
Yeah.
be good.
I love it.
All right. Chris H says, what do you think of a unity ticket with DeSantis Gabbard? I think Trump's going to win.
Yeah, if Trump wants it, he's in. It's that simple. Unless something radically changes between now and then.
Oh, okay. Homer Simp says, Tim, not to be pedantic, but I believe it was called Pastagate. The Quebec language police never recovered from that embarrassment. That was an amazing story when I first heard it when I was visiting Montreal.
It's an interesting thing. Tim Hortons is like the icon of Canada. Doesn't have
Right.
an apostrophe with the S because under the language laws, if you had an apostrophe in Quebec, it was an English language thing. So
the
Tim Hortons
heck?
didn't want to have two brandings for the product, so they just removed the apostrophe.
Wow.
There was another
Smart.
one, I'm sure I remember of it, called Joe's Garage. And it was Joe's apostrophe garage. He got in trouble with the police, the language police, and he covered up the apostrophe with the Canadian flag, which only made matters worse. But I have not been able to find. I haven't
love
been able
it.
to find that story. I'm sure I learned of it in law school.
There's a funny old viral video about the language police where it's like two guys are doing a drug deal in an alley and the cops pull up and they try to run. The cops grab them and they're like, we got you. And they're like, no. And the cops push him up against the wall and starts frisking him. And then he's like, what's this? And he pulls out a bag of weed and he goes, oh, sorry. He puts it back. And then he's like, wait a minute. And the other cop pulls out an English language dictionary and he goes, what's this? And he's like, it's not mine, I swear.
As an illustration of how preposterous it is, kosher foods and specific market foods would get in trouble for not having French on it, as if anybody wants to eat the kosher food stuff in the first place. Right. And it's like, so they say you need to have French on this, and that's how stringent the rules are. It's
So,
like they had a reason at the time, but if a law doesn't work after 40 years. Maybe it's not going to work in the next 40 years.
I wonder though, a company that makes like freezer cheeseburgers, do they create special packaging that's in French?
They have to, or what they do is they go with the cheaper alternative, which is just like stick over labels.
Oh, yeah.
And then but that
Or
adds
no words at all?
But even no, because you have to have ingredients, you have to have nutritional content. There's a bunch of stuff, and you have to literally have either French and English labeling or just French only. And then what people do is the cheap alternative, print up stickers and have employees, put them over. But that adds cost of doing business in Quebec, and it's a pain in the neck.
Why is English doing better than French though?
It's not that it's not doing it's not that it's doing better. It's that the idea is that French is on the decline. Apparently, if you trust the studies.
Why is, it is though.
I don't believe it is.
Really?
French people are still speaking French in Quebec. English people are speaking English, but everybody's speaking French and English. Who wants to speak French and English? But the idea is to protect French spoken in the home. None of this has anything to do with it, and to allow. To oblige a company of 25 employees or more to operate in French to have contracts drafted in French and in English, even if somebody wants them drafted in English, it's going to cripple the economy and not actually do anything to protect the French language, in my humble opinion.
All right, let's see. Trout in Alberta says, Tim, there are Canadians that will riot. Rural Alberta, not the cities, have had enough. Just look to the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta. What was that about?
Whistle Stop, I'm not sure about. Oh, I do know about Whistle Stop. A couple of people were held in contempt for continuing to operate. There was the Adams Barbecue in Ontario. Some people have stood up, and some people have gotten massive fines and have taken it to court. But by and large, it's a lot. I don't promote
Abolish the police?
non-compliance. No, I don't promote non-compliance because it doesn't get you where you want to go. It's just going to get the government to come in with more police force. But if people don't want to vote these people out, the people will get what they want. They'll get what they voted for.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening.
Well, so it's interesting because here, our police swear an oath to the Constitution. And then when you see these cops going out and enforcing unconstitutional edict and mandate, I have to wonder, what their word actually means. So I'm curious about your relationship, like the Canadian people's relationship with cops.
I would, in my experience, it's deteriorated. When you see cops pepper spraying dudes at a Tim Hortons because they're not wearing a face mask, it has nothing to do with safety. It has to do only with compelled compliance. But I have never not distrusted, but not liked seeing the police around because I don't know what they're there for. Are they there to actually fight actual crime, or are they there because an 8-year-old girl is not isolating in her house because she crossed somebody with COVID? I mean, I don't know what they're there to do, but if it's to enforce that stuff, they're not there to enforce the law, and it's causing some goodwill issues.
Abolish the police?
They never abolish the police, but just have the police should do a job which is justice and not.
As the good cops start quitting, give it a year or two, and then you'll be like, man, we really should have abolished them a long time ago. Because if the good cops are already going to quit, and the bad cops are going to stay, then it's a win-win for everybody.
Well, especially when you're talking about Canadian Mountie. I mean, they're considered the nicest cops in the world.
Quebec.
I heard they ride moose. Is that true?
It is not true. They ride horses, which is still kind of funny. But the Quebec police have had a reputation for being trigger happy in the past. But no. But the issue is that they're enforcing things in a way, and Quebec has issued tens of millions of dollars in COVID fines. It's atrocious.
All right. Let's see what we got here. Kirk Hood says, Ian's passion is great for the show. I like listening to how his mind works.
Oh.
Then if you are a member coming to the event tomorrow, you'll get a good chance to meet him. And Ian will sing you songs.
Oh.
And whisper sweet nothings into your ears.
Oh, gosh. Writing checks we can't sign.
Ron Garian says, simulation equals virtual reality. Simulacrum equals augmented reality. Interesting.
Oh.
Killer Donut says, do you think Biden will use the National Guard to supply federal L&O needs? The federal prisons is only about 60% vaccinated, 25% at some of the institutions. P.S. I don't know what that means. I'm not going to read it. But the other question, I think, yes, the National Guard will come in. They're gonna send a National Guard for truck driving. They called the National Guard for driving school buses in, where was it, Massachusetts?
Yeah.
And that's one of the next big vaccine mandate cases because they were given a longer time period to comply. And I've received requests from everybody. I mean, I've received requests from people who work at the White House to contest the vaccine mandate. So it's much broader. What you're talking about earlier in terms of who's opposing the social credit system is much broader than anybody knows. People at the Federal Reserve want to sue the Federal Reserve over it. I mean, but the National Guard suits are coming across the country.
Interesting. All right, here's one for Ian. DTQC says, the crown is the body politics, which is fused to the body of the queen. This was used to justify how Queen Elizabeth could rule even if she wasn't a man because her body politics is male.
Ah.
Okay.
That's some intense legal speak there. I don't know
It's
what that
like
means really.
some dude's like, she's a queen, she can't rule. But the body politic is male. Okay, she's a dude.
That works. Yeah.
I know DTQC's avatar, but I do not know the truthfulness or the accuracy of that statement.
Mm-hmm.
Well then.
I do not doubt it because he's a long-time watcher, but I don't know that offhand.
Andrew Bakanowicz says, I need a new shirt that says, what am I doing here?
All right, Luke.
Quote, Joe Biden.
I need something more spicy. That's like too. I need more.
All right, let's see. Wubba Lubba Dub Dub says, Brandon Lee was struck in the stock by a blank that got lodged in the barrel, then expelled by the next shot. Also, how much of SPAC rise do you think was from people copying Pelosi? Feed the chickens. Brandon Lee, my understanding is that there was a squib. It was a squib shot, it was called. So it had no gunpowder, but it had a bullet.
Supposed to not have primer, but it did have primer.
Yeah, there's a lot of
They
different
normally remove
theories
the
out
primer.
there.
This
There's
is
a
what I
lot
was
of
reading
different
on Wikipedia.
conspiracies about that story. So there's different versions of exactly what happened.
Like someone forgot to remove the primer or something.
something like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, they said Wubba Lub Dub Dub said feed the chickens. Chicken City is nearing absolute completion, and it is. You can see it on my Instagram. It's just a beautiful chicken fortress. It's got a sewer system, so where the chickens sleep, chickens just, they just dump where they sleep,
They get very
and so there's a
relaxed.
plastic pan which funnels down into a duct system that rolls it all out. So we it's a legit chicken city. It's got a sewer system. I think that makes it a city. And here's the plan that we're gonna build. Once it's completely done, we're gonna move the chickens in there, the adults first. We're gonna set up cameras for a 24/7 chicken live stream. We're gonna have different cameras and adjustable cameras, PTZ, so they can move around and film other things. And you're gonna watch the chickens do chicken stuff. And then the ultimate goal, we want to build a machine that whenever there's a $50 in super chats come in, it will rotate dropping treats for the chickens. And there'll be like a maximum release, maybe like only 10 times per day. But then people who are watching can, hit $5 and you'll see the meter fill up. And then once it hits 50, it'll go ding and the machine will start spinning and the chickens will run for it and they'll all be running around and fighting. And the thing is, people need to understand this. Chickens play rugby. You guys know this? That's what it's called. If you throw in like a bug, one chicken will pick it up and then run and they'll all chase each other. And they'll try and take the food from each other's mouths, but they run around and they're dodging and jumping. It's like really fun to watch.
The 24/7 is good. I've never seen a chicken actually lay an egg.
Oh,
Me neither.
I would be interested to see that.
That's right. And we'll put cameras in the roosting boxes.
they just sit there.
So there's a bunch of them. We'll figure out they like roosting in the same place, but we'll put a camera and then you don't really see anything. Sometimes the chickens will be running and the egg falls out.
I've seen an ostrich give birth, lay an egg, and that's
There's some
quite shocking.
There's some crazy developments according to the Daily Mail surrounding the Alec Baldwin case. I don't know
Oh,
if
what
you want
happened?
me to read it.
Yeah.
Well,
But the Daily Mail,
Let me pull it up.
the Daily
Is it
Mail,
the lead story.
I don't know, but they're reporting right now that when he was told that he needed to shoot the scene again, Baldwin jokingly
No.
said,
Is that in the Daily Mail? Because I heard that's not true.
That's what some people are reporting right
I
now.
read that this morning, that he jokingly was like, "I'll shoot you."
He was joking,
but
yeah.
that was not true.
Okay. Those are some of the reports I see going around Twitter right now. And again,
Yeah, that's
the
not in the
police
Daily
department
Mail.
are still investigating it. We don't know what happened.
Which,
and we're still
So
waiting.
there is an update though. Apparently, he was told the gun was safe. So that's the latest update. Big updates. But yeah, apparently someone went to him and told him the gun was safe. That's what they're reporting.
his crisis communications team is in overdrive.
Yeah.
Non-union assistant director handed him prop gun after workers walked off set over poor conditions. Yikes, man.
Yeah.
We got a big event tomorrow. There's gonna be a lot of people there. Some people who just happen to be in the area for some reason
That's right.
might actually be there as well. So make sure you go to timcast.com, become a member. We were trying to do events all year. Many of you probably know this, and it's just not easy to do. That's why one of the reasons I'd love for this county to become a part of West Virginia. But we got Freedomistan, which we're going to build a big stage, and we're going to have events there. We're going to try and figure it out. It's complicated stuff, insurance, cost, and all that stuff. But, we ultimately want to have the events be free for members when they spring up. Limited availability, obviously, but that's what we're doing here. I don't know if we'll be able to do an event for November and December just because of the holidays, and it's going to be cold. We'll figure it out, maybe. But then, January, February, March, we'll try and do events once a month in the area. Maybe, we'll see what happens with the lockdowns and the enforcement, all that stuff. But become a member at timcast.com. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends. Follow us at Timcast IRL on all platforms. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Do you guys want to shout anything out?
Yeah, if you want to follow us at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, that's where our community exists, and that's where you can get exclusive content all year round.
It is a treasure trove of information on locals. Robert and I are both on Twitter. Barnes_law on Twitter. Viva Frei on Twitter. Oh, the Viva Frei, not Viva Frei. That's a unrelated Russian account.
Oh, wow.
The Viva Frei. And before I forget, why do you have two machetes on the table?
Well, when we first had the new studio, there was a sword here.
My sword.
Someone took it away from me.
No,
so
no,
I got
you
my
took
own
my sword.
I got my own sword. It was here on the table. Okay, it was a free sword, so I
Weapon
decided to,
conflict.
I was like,
Free
hey. so anyway, I'm very excited about tomorrow's event, and if you want to see me leading the charge of the Let's Go Brandon chants, you can, because I'm going to be posting about it on my Twitter and Instagram stories, all under Luke We Are Change on Instagram and Twitter, and my YouTube channel is We Are Change, and it's great to see some of you guys there. Thanks for
It
having
was
me.
so good to have you guys here. The energy is good and the information is good. Like Luke, you said earlier, I wanted more, so hopefully we can do this again. I would love to have you guys back sometime.
There was a bar you mentioned earlier.
Oh yeah, someone had messaged me, and tonight people are going to be out. People that are in town for the event, and the name of the bar, I'm going to pull
Barn?
it up. The Barn.
Barn?
That's easy. Barnes.
Nice,
It's
yeah.
in Harper's Ferry. It's called the Barn.
The
And
bar?
the Barn with an
Barn.
N.
Sounds classy.
People may be there hanging out. If you go check around, there are people that are going to be attending the event tomorrow. Going to be hanging out there. One Kayla Fromell sent me the message, so thanks Kayla for letting me know.
Nice.
And then we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yeah. I am stoked. I looked up this quote that someone super chatted us that Tim didn't want to read because that's how people get you. It is Latin, and I could almost figure it out, but I had to look it up. It is Montani Semper Liberi, which is from the Latin, and it means mountaineers are always free. It is the state motto of West Virginia.
Oh.
Now we know. I feel
See,
enriched.
I should have known that.
Yeah,
I
you
thought
should
it
have
meant
known.
free
Yeah,
the
what heck?
mountain, but that makes more sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like it. Anyway, I am super excited about tomorrow. You guys may follow along on my Twitter at Sour Patch Lids.
All right, it's gonna have to be an early bedtime because we're gonna get there early. We got to set up. We have no idea what we're doing. We're get some amps, a PA, some microphones,
Wish us
and
luck.
just figure it out. And it's whatever. We'll be there, and we'll be working all day tomorrow. So thanks for watching the show, and for everybody who's coming out, we'll see you there. And for everyone who missed it, there'll be more to come, and we'll make sure we get you up. So thanks for hanging out. We'll see y'all next time.
Bye, guys.